horizon, but it's now well and truly on. After announcing a 90-day suspension of the exorbitant so-called Liberation Day tariffs that he had imposed on scores of countries around the world, the US President Donald Trump has now shifted his focus almost squarely onto China. Trump has now clarified that the cumulative tariffs that he has levied altogether on China, on goods from China, now amount to 145%. So yesterday we were talking 125, today we're talking 145% tariffs that are being levied on goods from China. But like that old song asked, war, what is it good for? What is a tariff war good for, if anything? That's the question we'll be posing to Professor Raymond Parsons. He will be breaking down the basics around tariffs, what they are, how they work, and why an economy such as the United States or a leader such as Donald Trump would want to impose. What good does he foresee, at least in his mind? Let alone that many economists and the rest of us disagree with the approach. But what is it good for? What is it trying to achieve? Professor Raymond Parsons is my guest at the top of 7. So I'll tell you this story as well. A fierce political row has erupted between Communications Minister Solly Malatsi on the one hand and the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Communications in Parliament, that's Thulasizwe Simelane. This is over the proposed changes, the regulations that the minister wants to introduce around the State Information Technology Agency, around how it procures services on behalf of departments. Basically, the long and short of it is that the minister wants to introduce these regulations that would enable departments to be able to go directly to market and procure some of these digital services because there are inefficiencies that are acknowledged almost by all and sundry around the SITA, the State Information Technology Agency. But the Portfolio Committee chairperson, Thulasizwe Simelane, believes that is an erosion of the powers of SITA and in a way that is impermissible in terms of the law. So we'll talk about that also in the first half hour of the second hour of this show, so just after 7. And then lastly, let me flag this story for you. Police unions are rallying behind the National Police Commissioner General Fanny Masimola's call for officers to use deadly force. For officers to use deadly force when confronted by violent criminals. He was speaking, of course, was the National Commissioner at the Policing Summit in Eguruleni, which started a few days ago. And the Commissioner emphasizing the need for law enforcement to act decisively in the face of escalating violence against police officers. So at about 10 to 7, I'll be in conversation with Lisiba Tobakhale, who speaks on behalf of the South African Police Union. The whole Morning Brief team is ready and primed to deliver your updates again this morning. And Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne watching your traffic, Zaikan at the sports desk, Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief. And that's coming up in the next few minutes. Of course, Ndauleng Lechela has your business and market updates. And a bit later on in this hour, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update. I'm taking your calls throughout the morning. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel, and that's SAFM Radio. So what are we waiting for? Let's get you all briefed up this morning.
They say fortune can change lives, but does it change who you are? From Engoto to Durban, twins born into struggle, now with millions in their hands. But with wealth comes division. One twin raised with responsibility, the other treated like royalty. Two paths, one dream, Maskandi greatness. Brand new telenovela, Amalanga Wafani, where money, family and betrayal collide. Starts April 2025, weekdays at 6:30, only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
Last season's finalists, Masandawana, want to reach another final, but Amakosi believe their fans deserve a special ticket to the final. This is the Nedbank Cup semi-final contest. Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus Kaizer Chiefs on Sunday, 13 April, live streaming on SABC Plus and SABC 1 at 5:30 p.m. Then on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Get tested this April at Specsavers and we'll give you a free optical frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand. That's right, get a free frame up to the value of 1,000 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye examination at Specsavers. Book online at specsavers.co.za or visit your nearest store nationwide. Early detection is key. Get tested today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
14 minutes after 6. Let's check in with Melissa Puta now with this morning's edition of the Morning Brief in Brief. Good morning to you, Melissa. Melissa, can you hear me?
Morning, Thulas, I'm here.
Yeah, so let's start now. This investigation by the Investigative Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, against General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Some news coming through on that front?
So IPID has cleared KZN Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of any wrongdoings regarding his allegations of interference in the 2023 arrest of a senior Department of Correctional Services.
All right. We do seem to have a bit of a challenge. Started out so well, crystal clear, but we do seem to have lost Melissa there. Let me see if I can try one more time. Melissa?
Morning,
Yes,
Thulas.
we've got you. Yes. Please go ahead. You were talking about IPID clearing Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
IPID cleared Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi of any wrongdoings regarding allegations of interference in the 2023 arrest of a senior Department of Correctional Services official. This was concluded after they found no evidence against the claims that were made.
Yeah. And then the second story that you're looking at has to do with that long-standing issue that we've covered quite a few times on the show, doctor shortages and the unemployment of qualified doctors. What is the minister saying?
So the minister has announced a creation of 1,650 new healthcare jobs and an investment of over R1 billion in hospital equipment. The new positions will include doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. This is aimed, to reduce the high number of unemployed doctors in the country, which is said to be at about 1,800.
Once again, we do seem to have lost Melissa on the line there, but I think we got the gist. I think there was only one more story that Melissa was going to cover. Let me see if I can try one more time. Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes,
We've got you one more time. Then the last story that you are looking at this morning, there was shock and outrage last week when the verdict came through in the Timothy Omotosho case. Now some Chapter 9 institutions want to do something about that.
So a joint inquiry has been launched to investigate the collapse of the rape case against Timothy Omotoso and his co-accused, who were acquitted after an 8-year legal battle. So the inquiry will be led by CRL Commission, the Commission of Gender Equality, and the South African Human Rights Commission. It will focus on Omotoso's case and other similar cases, with public hearings scheduled to come in the few months that are coming.
All right. Thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta with your morning brief in brief. It will be interesting to see how that inquiry plays itself out and how it relates to the work that the NPA itself says they'll be doing to try and get to the bottom of what happened in that Timothy Omotosho case. So just some of the stories that complete your brief this morning coming through from Melissa.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
17 minutes after 6. Let's give you a sense of what your weather is looking like this morning. So no warnings coming through from the South African Weather Service, but we do have the rest of your weather and it looks like this. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 25. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, 10 to 24. Mbombela will be partly cloudy with isolated showers, 18 to 25. Polokwane, partly cloudy with isolated showers, 13 to 24. Mahikeng, partly cloudy, 10 to 27. And as I say that, I see that my screen just decided that it's going to refresh. So I'll come back and give you more of your weather in just a moment. Please excuse that interruption. In fact, the team has managed to get it back so swiftly. So let me pick up where I left off at Polokwane, which will be partly cloudy with isolated showers with a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 24. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy, 10 to 27. Bloemfontein, partly cloudy, 10 to 24. Kimberley, partly cloudy, 13 to 26. Uppington, partly cloudy, 14 to 31. Cape Town will be fine, becoming cloudy from the evening with a minimum of 17 and a maximum of 24. George will be fine, 13 to 24. Gqeberha, fine, 11 to 24. East London will be cloudy will be cloudy in the early morning, otherwise partly cloudy with a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 25. Durban will be cloudy with isolated light showers and rain, 20 to 23. Richards Bay will be cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 20 to 23. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog patches, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 14 to 21.
At Buco, we know that every successful building project starts with quality and ends with pride. From small contractors to big builders, we're here to ensure that you have the tools, materials, and support to do the job right the first time. With Buco, you're never building alone. We are right here, ready to make your project a lasting success, from the foundation to paint. For every step and every build, begin with Buco.
Buco. The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half. It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies, the Klassiker, FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
20 minutes after 6. In what's been seen as a touching display of diplomacy and personal warmth, King Charles III and Queen Camilla made a surprise private visit to Pope Francis on Wednesday during their 4-day state visit to Italy. The encounter came as the pontiff continues to recover from a serious illness, adding a deeply human element to a week filled with official engagements. Let's speak now to Father Russell Pollitt, who is parish priest of Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Braamfontein here in Johannesburg. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time once again. So this visit was a private visit. There had been a scheduled visit that, was put on hold while the Pope was recovering. But it's quite significant, isn't it? Not only did the Pope make his first appearance in many, many weeks, public appearance within the last 7 or 10 days or so, now this visit by King Charles and Queen Camilla.
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe, and all your listeners. It is significant, and I think as well that part of the thing was that the Vatican had announced that this visit would not take place a couple of weeks ago. It was a scheduled visit when the royal couple were in Italy, and it seems on Wednesday they changed their mind. It wasn't published. People just saw the decade of the king and the queen leaving from one of the small side gates of the Vatican, Porto Perugino, and it seems as if they went in and they spent some time on their wedding anniversary with the Holy Father, who one can see from the pictures is still looking frail in a wheelchair. But as you say, a really touching display that the Holy Father is trying to get back to work, and the Holy Father is starting to see people again, maybe a little bit impromptu, but there we go.
Yeah, and what does it bring in terms of the hope of many, many Catholics around the world? Because, let's be honest, there was a point where concern was quite grave for his health, and you had a sense that people were preparing themselves for any eventuality. Just the remarkable recovery that he has made over the last few weeks. What does it represent for Catholics?
For Catholics, especially this year into Easter, people are really grateful. I think many people feel that their prayers were listened to. I think it's very hopeful. I think it speaks about the tenacity of the Holy Father himself, who has, kind of bounced back from.
Now, Father
situation.
Pollitt, I'm sorry. The line is really just messing up and sort of depriving us of the benefit of this conversation. So let's try and get you on a better line, because it is, or maybe let me just give it one more try. Please pick up on the point that you were making. Let's see if it has improved.
I was saying that I think the Holy Father has shown us that he's got great tenacity. I think that for many Catholics, it is a time, as we head into Easter, a time of gratitude. People feel that their prayers were answered. And I think for many people as well, hope-filled that the Holy Father himself is on the road to recovery. Although I must add, he is 88. He still looks very frail. Yesterday, there were images of him leaving Casa Santa Marta again and entering into the Basilica in really plain clothes, in a wheelchair. They wheeled him into the Basilica yesterday afternoon. He went to go and pray in front of the tomb of one of the popes, Pope Pius X. And I see many pictures this morning of people going to greet him in his wheelchair, not identified as a pope at all. So I think there is the sense that he's really strong-willed and he wants to get on with the job as best as he can.
Is it your sense that, and from knowing how the operations work and the management at the Vatican, how it all works, is it your sense that while he's got this strong will and wanting to get on with it, and previously you and I spoke about his work ethic, but is it your sense that he will be urged to moderate and ease back into things rather than wanting to get back 100% in terms of the weekly program?
No, he's definitely not back into things at all. There are strong kind of measures in place to stop him from doing too much work. So, for example, he's meant to still be in a time of convalescence. When he was released from hospital, they said that he would not be able to take on his duties for the next 3 months. It's only been 18 days since that happened. So my sense is that he's still that they are still trying to slow him down, still trying to make sure that he does not overstretch himself. But on the other hand, I think the Holy Father himself, it is clearly his decision to appear at St. Peter's on Sunday morning. It was his decision to meet the royal couple. And I think it was his decision yesterday afternoon to go into the Basilica. So there's always going to be this tension between Pope Francis, who we know is a bit of a workaholic, and those who are caring for him and trying to say to him, look, you really need to take it easy. Your age and your health at the moment do not allow you to continue with the speed that you were doing things beforehand.
And then just getting back to that private visit by King Charles and Queen Camilla, what would it represent in terms of the life of the church, particularly in England, given the historical background and context, but also just, given the state of the state of religion, or should I call it that, the state of religion and people's commitment to church, particularly in the last few years, but with a stronger focus perhaps on what it represents for the life of the church in England?
So I think first and foremost, there's a lot of Catholics in England. Not a huge amount, but there is quite a lot. There's a very vocal Catholic population in England. So I think it would be an affirmation of those people in England. I think it represents as well, the king is really the figurehead of the Church of England. Although they have the Archbishop of Canterbury and they're still waiting to elect a new one, the head of the church is the king. So I think the king going to meet the Pope, it says something to us as well about those very kind of strong and sometimes even ill feeling between the churches is certainly not something that is there like it was maybe 30 or 40 years ago. That is kind of breaking down, and there's more solidarity now. I think it also represents the fact that the churches, especially in a place like England, are starting to work together much more than maybe what they did in many, many years past. And if one thinks back of all the times that the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Pope did things together in recent years, for example, when they brought the leaders of Sudan together to try and bring some sort of reconciliation, I think this represents this kind of unity and the sense of we stand for the same thing, and let us try to make sure that these values are upheld.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Thank you for being gracious with your insights there always. That's Father Russell Pollitt. He's parish priest of Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Braamfontein.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
So a few years ago, Zai, the good people at Naturena came up with the saying, "Rise, Kosi, rise." And that's what Nazruddin Nabi wants to see when they take on Mamelodi Sundowns.
Yes, because I know Amakosi fans, they are holding their breath. It's make or break time or rise time come this weekend. We've got Kaizer Chiefs, the head coach, has called on his players to rise to the occasion as they prepare to face Mamelodi Sundowns in the Nedbank Cup semi-final this Sunday at Loftus Versfeld. Chiefs come into the clash winless in their last 4 matches, while Sundowns, fresh off a CAF Champions League semi-final spot, are favourites after winning their last 5 encounters with Amakosi. More soccer news. The Premier Soccer League's Board of Governors have decided to back the recommendation by the league's Executive Committee to cancel Royal AM's membership with immediate effect. Reps of all 31 professional teams, minus the affected Royal AM, came together at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg to deliberate the merits of the case. The Exco, led by Chairman Ivan Khoza, had proposed that Twisli Twasla be expelled after failing to honour their domestic fixtures at the start of the year that left the league with no choice but to suspend them indefinitely. Elsewhere, former Manchester United star Eric Cantona has accused co-owner Jim Ratcliffe and his lieutenants of destroying the Old Trafford club. The British billionaire has endured a turbulent spell since taking charge of United's football operations after buying a minority share in February 2024. The Ineos owner has sacked boss Erik ten Hag, replaced him with Ruben Amorim, and there's been little improvement in a team that's still languishing in 13th place in the Premier League. In the meantime, it was a stoppage time finish from Ryan Cherki, which earned Olympique Lyonnais a 2-2 draw with Manchester United in the first leg of the Europa League quarter-final. Let's hear from their coach, Ruben Amorim.
We are talking about the performance. We are improving. We are being consistent. I think that is clear for everybody. But then we need to win, and we had the game under control. But the good thing is that the last play before the goal was one play when we want to make the third goal, and sometimes you can keep the ball. But I really like it, that energy from the team to score another goal.
And finally, swimming. Matthew Sates back in action at the end of the evening program. He won the men's 200-meter butterfly final, and Rebecca Meader broke her own South African 200-meter individual medley record at the national trials, leading 3 automatic world qualifying times on the day. Michaela de Villiers finished first in the women's 50-meter backstroke, winning in 28.25 seconds, 0.03 of a second outside the qualifying standard. More sports, that's at the top of the hour. For the morning brief, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: the Thulasizwe Party's Youth League will this morning march from the Nelson Mandela Bridge to the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. The march forms part of the party's national #WhereIsMyVote campaign against the Electoral Commission's alleged vote rigging during the 2024 general elections. ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula has confirmed the much-anticipated meeting between the ANC and DA leaders will take place tomorrow. The meeting will take place amid disagreements among members of the Government of National Unity over the increase in value-added tax in the 2025 budget. And 6 people have died after a tourist helicopter they were traveling in crashed into the Hudson River off Manhattan's west coast in New York City. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. We've been warning about the mist out around the Emerald this morning. It is very thick along the N12 between Emerald and Ochkies, and we are looking in the middle of that of some standstill traffic. That may well point to a crash scene. Normally, the traffic moves slowly, but at the moment it is standing both directions. Emerald Ochkies on the N12. If you're around that way, think about using a combination of the Balmoral exit and the N4 as your alternative route to bypass that N12 delay. Other side of Gauteng, there's a crash on the N4 N14. This is coming from Krugersdorp up towards the Muldersdrift exit. The N14 is a heavy backlog. Again, just off-ramp. In fact, it's after Muldersdrift. It's up it's between Muldersdrift and the Malabongwe Lansiria exit. So you can off-ramp at Muldersdrift, take the side road, the 114, and on-ramp back at Malabongwe. That would be your rework around that truck crash and heavy delays. It'll crash on the R59 coming up at the Reading interchange, causing a bit of a delay as well. Ashburton through to Pietermaritzburg. The overnight roadwork has been lifted. That backlog has got through. Cape Town heavy. There's police doing something on the N2 inbound at Khayelitsha, just around the R300. That's pushing a heavy queue back as far as Spine Road. Once you get past that, you sit in N2 traffic from the airport all the way through to Hospital Bend this morning. And the M7 out of Mitchell's Plain, queuing from sort of Morgansteer all the way out. It's busier this morning, all the way up into the roadworks at Samora Michelle. Also, a crash, Marine Drive at Boundary Road, slowing traffic coming into Lagoon Beach from the Milnerton side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Business Update on SAFM.
When you hear from her, you know your morning has well and truly started. Good morning, Dowling Lechela. Let's start with, tell me about U.S. inflation. You're saying that it has eased in March.
Morning, Tulas. Now, a surprise move for markets as inflation was expected to increase in March. Consumer prices, however, cooling to 2.4%, way below expectations, and this is from 2.8% recorded in February. Now, economists have warned against getting too excited as inflation moves closer to the Fed's 2% target, with risks remaining to the upside on the back of those tariffs. Now, zooming in on the print, slumping energy prices helped keep inflation tame, as a 6.3% drop in gasoline prices helped drive a 2.4% broader decline in the energy index. Airline fares declined 5.3%, vehicle insurance dropped 0.8%, and prescription drugs inflation fell 2%. Excluding food and energy, core inflation ran at a 2.8% annual rate. This was the lowest rate for core inflation since March 2021.
Good morning. We kick it off in Mpumalanga with heavy news between Emeliseni and...
Looking at these inflation numbers, many economists expect the Fed to continue staying pat on rates, even as we see inflation coming in lower, as those risks are, of course, to the upside following all the tariffs that we could possibly get moving forward.
So speaking of those risks, then, tell me about global commodity prices, one of the indicators that we look at and how they relate to the growing fears of a possible recession.
That's right, Tula. So the ongoing trade war between the world's two largest economies has sent global commodity prices plunging, and that sparking concerns of a looming recession. Now, the only commodity that's in the green that's been appreciating is gold, as it holds safe haven value. According to the S&P GSCI index, which tracks commodity prices across energy, metals, and agriculture, that has declined over 8% since the 2nd of April, when President Trump announced a series of tariffs. Despite a slight recovery in prices following Trump's tariff U-turn, the damage, of course, already done. The energy sector has been hit the hardest, with prices falling around 12% since last week. Industrial metals have also taken a hit, declining around 9%, while soft commodities have dropped roughly 5.2%. Oil prices, which are highly sensitive to trade tensions, have remained at multi-year lows, with global benchmark Brent trading at under $65 a barrel. Now, yes, this could spell, lower fuel prices, but of course, when it comes to South Africa, we've been dealing with a lower rand, so those dynamics also then coming into play. Now, the decline in commodity prices is fueling concerns of global recessions, with many experts predicting a downturn in the U.S. economy. Earlier this week, we spoke about a number of investment banks and their projections, with many pricing in a possibility of a U.S. recession, and others saying China's going to struggle with reviving its economy. So it seems like those slowing growth fears continue to increase, to less.
All right, lastly, Dowling, please give us a sense of how the markets are looking at this hour.
Yesterday you described what's playing out in markets as yo-yoing, and that's exactly what's happening to us. One day we're in the green, the next we're in the red, and US stocks unable to hold on to gains, closing in the red overnight. And this despite cooling inflation, tech stocks really being beaten, with the Nasdaq plunging by over 4%. The JSE, however, playing catch up, closing in positive territory following the Wednesday rally that we saw. So the JSE holding on to gains from Wednesday, and we are seeing the all share making gains in yesterday's session, jumping 4.3%. Resources fueled most of those gains as it edged 8% higher. That, of course, being fueled by the higher gold price, which also touched a record high yesterday. Now, the Rand really steady, holding on to its recent gains. It's at 19.36 to the dollar. Over in Asia, initially there was a rally following the tariff pause, but that fizzling out as concerns about a US-China trade war continues to spook traders. Amid those concerns, stocks remain mixed.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauleng Lechela there with your first update of business and the markets for this morning. She'll be back at just after 7:30 with the second update.
At Dube Tradeport, we specialize in helping businesses grow through state-of-the-art manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics services, and international trade links. We're an advanced environment for doing business where most ambitious companies gather. If you're seeking progressive opportunities and looking to build mutually beneficial relationships, move to dubetradeport.co.za to see your business grow beyond potential.
TS Galaxy Queens have a special game plan to display a stellar performance to collect maximum points in their own backyard. However, Royal AM want to demonstrate their royalty with a win away from home. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Don't miss out on TS Galaxy Queens versus Royal AM Ladies the Saturday 12th April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Africa Update on SAFM.
All right, let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. Let's start with this story out of the Cote d'Ivoire. Tell me about the messages of condolences that are being, paid to pass on the passing of Amara Essi of Cote d'Ivoire.
Refreshing morning, Tula, and jump off to the listeners. Indeed, Tula, the message coming from the capital seat of African diplomatic affairs, Addis Ababa, from the chairperson, Mohamed Ali Yusuf, who have said that this is an end of a significant chapter in the history of African diplomacy and continental integration. Here we are talking about the last Secretary General of the Organization of African Unity, known as the OAU, and the first interim chairperson of the African Union Commission that was reset in Durban in 2001 and 2. And when we talk about Amara Essi, we're talking about a diplomat, a former foreign affairs minister in Ivory Coast, have played a role in the United Nations, despite that he had contestation for being an SG at the UN with Kofi Annan at some point, wanted to come in also as the chairperson of the AU, and he had to give away to Alpha Konare in 2003. So those messages of support, of condolences coming from the AU and other member states of ECOWAS with the passing of Amara Essi.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit more about Gabon Decides. You're saying that there are 4 key things that you want to highlight, 4 things we need to know about this election.
The 4 things that we need to know, even if in just passing, that we have 860,000 registered voters who are expected to vote tomorrow. But these are crucial elections where we are expecting to see what we call transition to civilian rule since 2023 coup in Gabon. Secondly, we are seeing the issue of the key candidates who will be even contesting. Yesterday, we touched on the opposition, but we have this current transitional president, General Brice Oligui Nguema, who is also campaigning on the trail of anti-corruption ticket. One looks also at the constitutional and electoral reforms that Gabon has been pushing since 2024, that we'll see whether this election will have a test on the electoral management body of Gabon, whether they'll be able to deliver the legitimate, transparent, and credible elections. I've avoided the word peaceful, free and fair to us because of our electoral vocabulary that we are looking at elections. Yeah. The final one, whenever you have elections to us, economy becomes at the center. Gabon has crude oil, it's got timber, it's got manganese. It's what we call during the week the natural resources of Africa, how they have to be managed properly, even when you have what I call transition of political power.
So if there's one thing you don't associate Tanzania with, it's issues of political instability and controversies. Tell me about these charges of treason that are being leveled against the opposition leader.
The opposition leader we know has been on the news for some time. He have survived many attempted assassination. Thulasizwe, who has been charged with treason for calling for electoral reforms. Remember, Tanzania in October decides, and others are saying it brings actually President Samia Suluhu's bid for the re-election under scrutiny on the cracking down of opposition. This leader, Thulasizwe, they say he was in a rally where he has raised the issues that he will inspire rebellion. They will prevent elections. So these are the charges that have been brought against Thulasizwe. That's how Tanzania is going with the opposition to us as they are going for the elections towards the middle of the year.
And Sipho, tell me about South Africa and Senegal seeking to strengthen their diplomatic ties.
Very important to us. Ronald Lamola was in Dakar in Senegal to us for a 2-day working visit. This 2-day visit to us, it looks at the political dialogue, economic cooperation, regional integration, and also, as you know, this was a ministerial joint commission. You'll remember the Dakar peace talks to us, where South Africa's freedom or democracy was once muted in Dakar at some point in Senegal. Lamola also met with the youngest leaders of Senegal. There's no way Thulasizwe can meet with foreign affairs ministers Ousmane Sonko and President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. I saw in his Twitter street how he spoke about meeting with the leaders of Senegal, being those youngest, and this is a first bilateral to us that the outcome is looking at the 2050 vision of Senegal as well as the National Development Plan of South Africa of 2030.
Lastly, Sipho, your historical archives takes a look at a tragic episode in South Africa. It's one of those for me that are where were you when moments, right? Because I know exactly where I was when this incident happened. Tell me about what happened on the 11th of April, 2001.
That was the dark cloud in the history of our history in the soccer fraternity, with people losing their lives in Ellis Park during the soccer match between the two biggest teams from Soweto, Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, almost 24 years ago. I will ask listeners, as you have said, we have looked at it before, your 1991 opening, the same match of Chiefs and Pirates where people lost their lives. But in 2001 also, there was a commission of inquiry that led on it 133 pages for our listeners if they want to get into the deep end when we have big soccer matches, how do we manage it? That was led by Justice Bennett Mwepe, and as well, additional member of that was the senior counsel, Ishmael Semenya. Very important moment to us, since I was challenging Mazai to say, Zaikan, look at this as we are having a soccer match over the weekend, but let us remember the families who lost their lives. There were children, by the way, to us in that incident that happened in Ellis Park. The names like Simpiwe, Mpunguze, Roswin Nation, those were young people who were injured during that big soccer match in Ellis Park in Johannesburg. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading a conversation, SAFM observing the Freedom Month.
All right, thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update this morning.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Coming up to 13 minutes before 7 a.m., let's turn to the story. The police unions have rallied behind National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola after his call for officers to use deadly force when confronted by violent criminals. Speaking at the policing summit in Ekurhuleni, Masemola has emphasized the need for law enforcement to act decisively in the face of escalating violence against police officers. His remarks have since ignited national debate, with some of the major unions in the policing sector and in other crime-fighting agencies voicing strong support for a tougher stance. Let's welcome Liseba Tobachale, who is the spokesperson of the South African Police Union. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. All right, it's. I believe we will come back to that story with Lesiba Tobachale in just a moment. But I do want to take you to this story that has to do with the conversations that the ANC has been having with the different sectors of society. So, firstly, let me give credit to the initial reporting of independent news on that story. When the ANC is not too busy trying to keep together the fractious national coalition government that it leads, its other preoccupation is how to rebuild its structures and win back the hearts and minds of South African voters. So it's in that effort that it's been engaging with various sectors in society for frank and diagnostic conversations. So at a recent meeting with professionals in KwaZulu-Natal, it was told in no uncertain terms that while the party is not lying on the seafloor yet, it could get there soon if it fails to get its house in order. Among those who participated at that meeting is Dr. Sandile Chabalala of the Progressive Professionals Forum. He now joins me to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. So the conversation, the way I understand it, was attended by in the main professionals in the health sector as well as those in the education professions and the likes. What was the essence of the message that the professionals had for the ANC in response perhaps to the question, what ails the ANC and what has led to a disconnect with society?
Good morning, Menzi, to yourself, and good morning to the listeners. Look, the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal called professionals, all professionals, as it is going to be calling different sectors of society, to say that it does appreciate that there are things that need to be engaged on between the African National Congress itself and the different sectors of society. These are meetings that, according to the African National Congress, are going to be happening on an ongoing process. The aim of all this is to say the unity that has always been there among the South Africans, led by the ANC, needs to come back. But in all that, the professionals have always been among the central people. If you look at the history of the ANC, as far back as the start of the ANC, you think of Jabavu, you think of Pixley, you think of Langalibalele, you will know that they were professionals. And therefore, they are going back to say, how do the professionals ensure that what the ANC promises gets to be implemented? And the professionals were therefore saying it would be a good thing to see that happening because it's for the benefit not only of the professionals but of the people of our country who have been always and still believe the ANC is one organization that can do this. So that was the gist of the meeting.
So what was the sense then from the professionals about the governance under ANC leadership at a national level? We're talking here professionals such as lawyers. I believe they were concerned more about briefing patterns that they believed that did not really assist in transformation. We're talking doctors who were worried about staffing as well as teachers as well. What was the essence of the message that they said about how the ANC had governed up to the point where it got into this coalition government of national unity?
Let me start by saying, this was one of the initial meetings, so those are still going to be unpacked. But as you are mentioning two examples, the lawyers were complaining that the briefing patterns still favor the big white companies and the black lawyers are not getting the briefs as much as they are expecting to be briefed by the ANC. In essence, economically, black lawyers are not surviving as much as the white lawyers or law firms. So that needs to be looked at. Why are we having such briefing patterns? But also the doctors appreciating that there may have been economic issues, but what options are there for all the healthcare workers? They spoke as doctors, yes, but what can be done for all healthcare workers to be employed such that the healthcare service in the country can be improved to better than what we are seeing at the moment. And many others also were saying it would be good that they be looked at. I think there was going to be a sitting with the richer sector as well, and they were going to also say what are the issues.
So a stark warning coming from yourself then that uses the analogy of the ANC and being lying on the seabed, on the seafloor. You're saying that the ANC is not there yet, but it could get there unless it gets its house in order. What does getting its house in order look like for you?
You will remember that since the start of elections in 1994, the ANC has been getting lesser and lesser percentages in terms of the election results. And that says there are mistakes that have been happening and there are analysis that have been done, and those analyses need to be implemented. You'll remember there was a report that at some stage was issued by President Kgalema Motlanthe. There was a report that was spoken about by Minister Gwede Mantashe, and they were citing a few things that they were seeing that they would say are mistakes being done by the ANC. So that needs to be corrected. When that is corrected, we expect that the unity of the South African people, the ANC, can take back its position and be the leader of society.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Dr. Sandile Shabalala of the Progressive Professionals Forum.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quick update on some of the big issues this morning. The N14 leading Krugersdorp on your way to Pretoria. There's a big crash there involving a truck that's jackknifed between Muldersdrift and the 512 Lanseria exit. Quite heavy. If you come off at Muldersdrift, take the 114 is the alternative. Crash coming out of the airport at Joburg on the R24 to Barbara Road, so that's slow. Very heavy mist and delays this morning. Quite big backlog, so possibly a crash scene between Emerlachlanny and Ochie's on the N12. If you don't fancy it, use the combination of Balmoral exit, Balmoral Road and the N4 as your alternative around that. 30 up to Prospecton, coming in off the south coast, looking quite heavy today. And Cape Town Marine Drive coming out of Tableview, busy as normal down to Racecourse Road, but then it gets heavy. A crash at Boundary Road, Lagoon Beach, and that's what's causing that pushback already from Milnerton as you head towards Pardon Island. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Hey Msansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our blue sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from only 942,000 Rand, or just 9,999 per month when financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, primeless 5%, 40% residual. And remember, every blue sky offer comes standard with our Ford Family Promise. That's just 9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
Last season's finalists, Masandawana, want to reach another final, but Amakosi believe their fans deserve a special ticket to the final. This is the Nedbank Cup semi-final contest. Yona! Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus Kaizer Chiefs on Sunday, 13 April, live streaming on SABC Plus and SABC One at 5:30 p.m. Then on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
All right, let me get back to that story that I touched on a bit earlier on. Police unions, some police unions rallying behind the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemola, after his call for officers to use deadly force when confronted by violent criminals. He was speaking, of course, at the policing summit in Eguruleni, and Masemola there emphasizing the need for law enforcement to act decisively in the face of escalating violence against police officers. So let's welcome Thulasizwe Simelane, who is the president of Pop Crew, one of the unions. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. Just your overall stance. What does the call by General Fani Masemola add to your understanding of how these things work, occasions on which police officers can use deadly force?
Thank you very much. Good morning to us, and good morning to your listeners at home. This call is long overdue. We have been calling for, firstly, for the Criminal Procedure Act to amend it so that the killing of police will also be stopped. Secondly, the defending themselves, the police, is very much important because police also, they are the arm of the state, If you kill a police, it means you are attacking directly the state. Now, for the police to defend themselves, it's going to be good because Section 205, their responsibility is to make sure that they protect and investigate and maintain law and order. Now, if they are killed, they will leave a vacuum for that mandate that they are given. So we are saying as Pop Crew, if our members are facing danger with criminals who are pointing a gun at themselves, they must not hesitate to defend themselves and make sure that they return fire with fire. It's a long call overdue, and also we're calling for the law to make a killing or attack on the state to become a high treason.
So tell me about your reading of the situation. Is it your sense that the killing of police officers or violence directed at police officers is increasing? We've been reporting quite extensively, for instance, about the number of confrontations that end up with suspects dead in KwaZulu-Natal. Is it because police are being confronted more and more by violent armed criminals?
Yes, the criminals are no longer afraid of the law. They don't respect the law. They don't respect the police in this country. Even they don't respect the citizens of this country who are supposed to live in without fear. So now, if then the one that are given that responsibility to protect the country and protect the community and protect the property for our own South African people to feel free, if they are being confronted by those who don't care about the life of a policeman, who don't care about the life of a citizen of South Africa. So there's no way, any other way that the police must do. We will support any other member of us who will make sure that he comes out alive, he protects the property, he also protects himself against any other person who will point a gun on himself.
Lastly, what about Section 49 of the Criminal Procedure Act do you want to see amended and strengthened? Because the way I read it, it sort of pads a little bit in terms of occasions when deadly force can be used, such that, it talks about the suspect posing a threat of serious violence to the person effecting the arrest or any other person, and the other precondition being that the suspect is suspected on reasonable grounds of having committed a crime that involves the infliction of serious bodily harm. What about that doesn't quite hit the mark in terms of balancing the need to defend yourselves and the need to not engage in extrajudicial killings?
And remember that the Criminal Procedure Act that you're talking about, that is having that Section 49, it was in 1977, which was an apartheid one. In terms of democracy, now, if you are going to say this is a democratic country, the responsibility in terms of the Constitution, Section 205, specified clear what is the responsibility of the police in terms of that mandate. Then if you say, how do you think at the meantime when you are at the coalface to say this is the minimal force, this is what the person is going to do. So you say it must not be ambiguous. It must be straightforward to say if a person points a gun at a police official or any other citizen of South Africa, that person, a policeman, must be able to defend himself by also returning fire. If a criminal shoots at the police, because in terms of the law, you are not supposed even to take you inside the van. When I put my hand on your shoulder to say you're under arrest, you must comply.
Yeah.
But now, even before that it happened, people see the police coming. When they say police, stop, we are the police, identifying themselves, they just shoot.
Right.
So what must the police, they must do? They must return fire with fire.
All right, thank you for that. That's Thulasizwe Simelane, who is the president of the Police and Prisons Civil Rights Union, Pop Crew. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, IPID withdraws complaint against Mkwanazi and a deadly helicopter crash in New York City. Good morning. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID, has officially stopped its investigation into KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkwanazi. IPID has cleared Mkwanazi of any wrongdoing after finding no evidence to support the allegations from an anonymous complainant that Mkwanazi had interfered with investigations against an official at a prison facility in the province. Meanwhile, a march in support of Mkwanazi, which was due to take place in Durban this morning, has been cancelled. The Thulasizwe Party Youth League will this morning march from the Nelson Mandela Bridge to the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. The march forms part of the party's national #WhereIsMyVote campaign against the Electoral Commission's alleged vote rigging during the 2024 general elections. The party emerged as the third largest in parliament with 58 seats out of the 400-seat National Assembly. The MK party claimed the commission failed to uphold its mandate to conduct free and fair elections. ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula has confirmed the much-anticipated meeting between the ANC and DA leaders will take place tomorrow. The meeting will take place amid disagreements among members of the Government of National Unity over the increase in value-added tax in the 2025 budget. The ANC is set to meet the three largest parties, the DA, Thulasizwe Party and EFF. Other challenges that the budget is facing are potential implementation delays, concerns about the nature of efficiency savings and the need for policy decisions on income support and job creation. Mbalula says the ANC has already met with the PAC, Action SA, Build One South Africa, UDM, IFP and the Cape Coloured Party. He addressed the media in Sandton in Johannesburg yesterday.
We have not met yet with the EFF, MK Party, the DA. We have not met with those parties at the Freedom Front Plus, Patriotic Alliance, UAT. We have not met with them, those parties. And the Rise Mzansi. We'll meet with some tomorrow. We meet with the DA on Saturday and the Freedom Front Plus on Sunday. All political parties we have engaged with to date have agreed that we will meet next week again, all of us, in terms of interrogating and concretizing the way forward on the question of the budget.
Meanwhile, Action SA President Herman Mashaba says he's optimistic the budget impasse will be resolved by next week. He says Action SA and the ANC are committed to ensuring that revenue alternatives to an increase in VAT are tabled. Mashaba has told SABC News he's confident the talks between the two parties will produce positive results.
I cannot see why talks should fail. For us as Action SA, by last Sunday already, we submitted over 100 billion rands of alternative revenue to offset that matter. So I cannot really see how any normal person that cares about the future of this country will reject those proposals and save South Africans the burden of this 0.5% VAT.
And finally, 6 people have died after a tourist helicopter they were travelling in crashed into the Hudson River off Manhattan's west coast in New York City. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
The Associated Press reports that the helicopter broke apart in midair and crashed upside down into the river, killing everyone on board. In just the latest high-profile aviation disaster in the US. On videos posted to social media, the fuselage is seen falling out of the sky and slamming into the water in a huge splash. The skies over Manhattan often see helicopters on private, commercial and tourist flights, with several helipads populating the island. Local media reports that a family of 5 from Spain were on board with the pilot. Sharon Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate has officially stopped its investigation into KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkwanazi. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Paying too much for car insurance? Well, you could be, but you'll never know until you shop around. Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Pinky, a 60-year-old woman, is a real Outsurance client who saves an unbelievable 870 Rand a month on her 2020 Kia Seltos 1.6. Now, that's what I call a real deal. Why pay more? Switch and save today. SMS OUT to 30754. That's OUT to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just confirming a crash out in the mist between Emeletheni and Ockies this morning. So not only the mist and poor visibility, but some very heavy delays into that crash scene both ways. I understand the collision is Joburg bound, but if you're heading into Mpumalanga, there's some delays out that side as well. Truck crash on the N14 between Muldersdrift and Lanserius 512 exit. Quite heavy for motorists leaving en route to Pretoria this morning. Durban's M7 chock-a-block between North Dean and the St John's Avenue Bridge. Some very heavy traffic getting along that route into Pinetown this morning. Ashburton through to Market Road, all cleared up. If you're going into Pietermaritzburg, some overnight roadworks lifted around 6 o'clock earlier this morning, so that big backlog has made its way through. Cape Town, the N2 inbound from Robert Sobukwe to the Hospital Bends, busy. Marine Drive queuing from Tableview to Racecourse Road, and then queues past Milnerton High School down to Lagoon Beach. There is a crash that's being attended to there, Marine Drive at Boundary Road. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's soccer action with Sundowns juggling cups as well as league glory. Their coach Miguel Cardoso says winning makes the pain worth it. And in golf, Justin Rose, he fired a 7-under 65 to take the first round lead at the Masters. All this and more just before 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Friday morning. It's great to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the show for this morning. Here's what's coming up in this hour. A tariff war. What is it good for? As U.S. President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping go toe-to-toe in the escalating trade war, we bring you Tariffs 101. And we'll be talking to Professor Raymond Parsons of the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences at the Northwest University, and we'll be unpacking all of that, what tariffs are, what they are aimed at achieving, what they actually achieve, and how it all impacts the global economy, as well as how it impacts you and I. That conversation is coming up in the next few minutes. And shortly after that, I'll be in conversation with Kwena Moloto, who is spokesperson for the Ministry of Communications and Digital Technologies. This is all about that fierce row, political row, that has erupted between the Communications Minister, Soli Malatsi, on the one hand, and the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Kusela Sangoni Diko. And this is over the proposed changes that the minister wants to introduce around the procurement of digital services by government departments, in a way bypassing the State Information Technology Agency, which is plagued by inefficiencies. So the minister wants departments to be able to bypass SITA. The Portfolio Committee chairperson says, no ways, you cannot do that in any way that is lawful. So that conversation with Kwena Moloto coming up in the next few minutes. I'll also take your calls on these and other matters that may be exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial, 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get the show started. This is the second hour of the Morning Brief.
TS Galaxy Queens have a special game plan to display a stellar performance to collect maximum points in their own backyard. However, Royal AM want to demonstrate their royalty with a win away from home. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Don't miss out on TS Galaxy Queens versus Royal AM Ladies the Saturday 12 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So there's a growing sense that the dreaded all-out trade war between two of the world's biggest economies, the US and China, is no longer just a feared scenario in the horizon, but that it's now well and truly on. After announcing a 90-day suspension of the exorbitant so-called Liberation Day tariffs he had imposed on scores of countries around the world, the US President Donald Trump has shifted his focus almost squarely onto China. Despite saying he would love to make a deal with China, Trump has now clarified that the cumulative tariffs that he has levied on goods from China into the US amount to 145%. So, what are tariffs? How do they work? And why does the specter of these massive tariff hikes have the whole world in a tailspin? Let's speak to Professor Raymond Parsons of the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences at the Northwest University. Prof, good morning. Thank you for your time. A basic question. Not all of us understand this phenomena. What are tariffs?
Well, good morning to you and to your listeners. Let me say immediately that in the World Trade System for many years, the instrument of tariff protection has existed, but they are meant to be rules of the game in the sense that if you impose an import tariff on imports, that cost is either borne by the importer or eventually is passed on to the consumer. So there are cost factors involved every time a tariff decision is taken. So clearly, from the United States point of view and from President Trump's point of view, he has come to love tariffs and sees them as a major instrument in order to protect the U.S. economy and to advance the interests of the U.S. economy. But although there is the existence of tariffs all over the world, they are meant to be rules of the game. And the problem is that whereas we do have the World Trade Organization having existed for many years to enforce the rules of the game and fair trade, both China and the United States have in fact undermined that institution, ignored it, and so now they are sorting it out on a bilateral tariff war basis, and there will be collateral damage to the world as a whole.
Am I correct in understanding that the imposition of tariffs on imported goods is meant to, one, protect a domestic industry or industries, but further to that, would it need to be accompanied with other measures that ensure that those domestic industries you are trying to protect can actually meet the demand for those products once you've imposed these tariffs?
Well, of course, the tariff protection is one instrument. But as I've said, although all countries apply it, it's got to be done according to certain rules. It's got to be at certain reasonable levels so that it's not counterproductive, because the world has found that doing business with the rest of the world raises standards of living, does create jobs, and is, as a whole, very important. When you want to get economic development, of course, it's not only the tariff. And we found in South Africa and elsewhere there are a number of other measures that have to be done. And we know even now this whole debate about getting growth going in South Africa goes beyond the tariff. There are a number of other policy instruments that all have to be used. But the focus of the world now, and of course of President Trump, is that he sees the tariff as the most important instrument in order to protect the economic interests of the United States. That may be indeed very misplaced, and it's going to actually damage the United States in the way it's being done now. But the fact is, that is his point of departure as far as the United States is concerned.
So, Prof, the number of economists who think tariffs are a good thing are in an extreme minority. I've heard of one or two. I think one of them is the advisor to the U.S. president. I think his name is Peter Navarro, if I'm not mistaken. But the overwhelming majority say tariffs a bad thing. The markets do not like the specter of tariffs, as we have seen, the kind of activity that has been happening in the markets. So tell me why tariffs are a bad thing and why they have the world in a tailspin.
Well, because Firstly, the way in this has been done has created enormous uncertainty. If you were the average business person in many parts of the world today, you would be asking yourself, well, given where we are, the imposition of tariffs, then the suspension of certain tariffs, well, what investment decisions do I take? What happens to my supply chains? Should I be stocking up? Should I be cancelling my orders? So in the first place, it creates an enormous amount of uncertainty, given not only the way in which this has been done, but the levels at which these particular tariffs have been pitched. So in this way, it shows that once you go down this road, and to this extent, as far as import tariffs are concerned, you have an enormous negative impact on many economies, including the United States economy. Hence, the financial markets have reacted very badly to the extreme way in which these tariffs have been handled. And secondly, when you get beyond the financial markets, you begin to see it's starting to have effect on the real economies of the world. So even the suspension that has been announced will not necessarily reverse what are already the signs of the damage that has been done to the world, to the world trading system, and to confidence in applying the rules of the game as far as import tariffs are concerned.
So lastly then, Prof, how should South Africa play this one out? We were subject to a 25% tariff in terms of, that tariff that applies to all automotive imports into the United States, and I believe that still stands. Then we had that 30% as part of the so-called Liberation Day tariffs. That's since been reduced along with the rest of the world to just 10%. Can we afford to take a step back and say, well, at least it's 10%, it's not 30%, let's sit this one out? Or do we look at ways at how to, take advantage of this situation?
I think I would respond in two parts. The first is, in the short term, we must now use this opportunity of the suspension, because the door to a further negotiation as far as South Africa and the United States is concerned about tariffs, the door has been opened. We must engage. We must accept also that probably part of our strategy must be to acknowledge that we're probably not going to have the actual AGOA arrangement in fact renewed later in the year. So I think that's the short term. We must engage in a positive way and see how we can help those sectors of our economy that are most affected by these tariffs. But secondly, the world trading system has now been upended, and we as a small open economy will have to look at what are the alternative markets that we need to identify and engage, and above all, to the extent that we have factors under our control, to get our own house in order, to run our economy in such a way that we build the necessary economic buffers and the resilience so that we can deal in the longer term with what are now fundamental changes in the world economy, in the world trading system, and how we can best advance our interests under a new regime of trading as is now unfolding in the world.
All right, sounds like sensible advice to me. Thank you for that. That's Professor Raymond Parsons of the Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences at the Northwest University.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
21 minutes after 7, a fierce political row has erupted between Communications Minister Solly Malatsi and the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies, Thulasizwe Simelane, over proposed changes to State Information Technology Agency procurement regulations. Malatsi defends the new regulations as a pragmatic step towards faster, more efficient service delivery, while Simelane accuses him of overstepping his legal authority and attempting to cripple a key state agency. Let's speak to Gwena Moloto, who is spokesperson of the Ministry of Communications and Digital Technologies. So, good morning to you and thank you for your time. What is the reasoning behind these regulations that in effect would allow government departments to bypass SITA and do procurement of digital and other technological services outside of SITA?
Morning. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners. This really stemmed from the fact, and I believe it's something that all South Africans can relate to, is this famous thing of the system being offline. For many government departments, your SAPS, your Home Affairs, for years they've struggled with issues of ICT software and infrastructure that's been procured through CETA. And there's been a call for many years to say that many departments would like to procure their own ICT infrastructure and services. And so the Minister of Communications and Digital Technology, Thulasizwe Simelane, in line with the CETA Act, reached out to the various ministers through cabinet, as well as all of the provincial governments, through a consultative process, received positive feedback, and is now going to move forward with these regulations. But it really is just about saying that in the case that a government department is able to procure ICT services and infrastructure faster and cheaper than CETA, that they should be allowed to do so.
Why not fix the inefficiencies within CETA, an agency created by an act of parliament?
So we are in the process of fixing CETA. There's been a PSC investigation that's been launched to deal with the governance and leadership issues that have been broadly spoken about at CETA, and that were raised by the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. There's also a new interim board that's been put in place to really try and steady the ship. But what this really comes down to is freedom of choice, and I believe that it's something that our Constitution enshrines. It's to say that if a government department is able to come with a credible business case to say that they can procure for cheaper and faster, ultimately that means a better service for
But isn't that easier though? Isn't that easier when there's economies of scale? When one agency says we procure on behalf of all of government, and you have infused that ability to manage that procurement, you as a department have insisted that that is fused into the agency itself. Doesn't that make it easier to negotiate, favorable rates and realize the savings as well as the efficiencies you're talking about?
Agreed 100%, but the fact that that's not happening shows that there are issues at CETA, and ultimately when and as we would like to believe CETA begins to turn around, you would find that majority of departments wouldn't have to procure these ICT software and infrastructure by themselves, but until that happens, it can't be that it's the citizens of South Africa and the departments that are forced to pay for CETA's mistakes. Monopolies allow for slow movement. They allow for the issues that we've seen inside CETA at the moment, and we're saying that given the scale of CETA, the mandate of CETA, ultimately no one should be able to procure ICT software quicker and faster because of, as you said, the economies of scale. But until that point, it can't be that South Africans suffer because of the inefficiencies that have begun to develop at CETA.
So, what's the basis of these regulations, particularly? And I'm not questioning the authority of the minister to make regulations, but what I'm questioning is how do you reconcile those regulations with the section that the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee cites, Section 7.3 of the Act, that says, quote, every department must, subject to subsection 4, procure all information technology goods or services through the agency, end quote.
Yeah, so the CETA Act also speaks to the minister's powers in regards to regulations, and these processes have been followed. As I said, there's been consultation with all cabinet ministers who have responded favorably. There have been consultations with all of the provincial governments, and the consultations have been positive. And then on top of that, this was then, after those consultations, taken to the Minister of Finance as per the CETA regulation, and the Minister of Finance responded positively. So everything's been followed to the T as per the Act, and I believe that the committee chair is really choosing information that speaks particularly to an argument, but the reality of the matter is that the Act has been followed to the letter of the T. This is not anti-transformation. This is about progress, and it's about ensuring that the residents of South Africa get the best quality services.
I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Kwena Moloto, who is spokesperson for the Ministry of Communications and Digital Technologies.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So the load is heavy. The load is heavy on Mamelodi Sundowns, but Miguel Cardoso is not complaining because that's the price of greatness.
Right, when you're this good, what fixture congestion? That's the coach saying they've maintained their position regarding fixture congestion, but says that being at the top of the table and reaching the semi-finals of two major cup competitions is rewarding. The Portuguese coach expressed his frustration about having to play every 3 days, which necessitates rotating the squad to mitigate the risk of injuries.
I agree. We cannot be in the moments of decisions without going through the process. Obviously, that we still have some features that are some congestion, but we've been managing, and I think from now on things will be manageable. Despite the level also increase, that brings extra, I will not say pressure, but extra level of demand of levels of concentration, extra volume of work from our part, so that we can be very detailed and simple in the way then we bring those things for the players.
In the meantime, Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nazruddin Nabi has called on his players to rise to the occasion as they prepare to face Mamelodi Sundowns in the Nedbank Cup semi-final this Sunday at Loftus Versfeld. Chiefs come into the clash winless in their last 4 matches, while Sundowns, fresh off a CAF Champions League semi-final spot, are favourites after winning their last 5 encounters with the Amakhosi. Let's go to a stoppage time finish from Rayan Cherki, earning Olympique Lyonnais a dramatic 2-2 draw with Manchester United in the first leg of the Europa League quarter-final last night. Elsewhere, Real Madrid forward Kylian Mbappe moved closer to receiving his 1.1 billion rand in unpaid wages and bonuses. He says his former club Paris Saint-Germain owe him. The player's lawyers announced that the sum will be seized from PSG's accounts and protectively frozen while the case is being heard. And finally, golf. Justin Rose finished the opening day of the 89th Masters tournament with a 3-shot lead. Defending champion Scottie Scheffler, who's looking to win his 3rd green jacket in the space of 4 years, carded a 4 under par, and that's bogey-free 68 to finish the day in joint 2nd place with Corey Connors and Ludwig Arberg. Here's Justin Rose.
I feel like I've played well enough to win this tournament. I just feel like I don't have the jacket to prove it. I feel like, no, it's a compliment. You know, I've played a lot of good rounds of golf here. I've got a lot of crystal, which is obviously always nice. But yeah, you know, ultimately you want to be last man standing on Sunday. And you know, I was a shot shy. Well, you know, I guess Sergio and I in 2017, that was a real 50-50.
And that's a wrap. We'll have more sport, top of the hour on the Morning Brief. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velingusini Hlabisa will this morning visit an 8-year-old boy in hospital in Soweto. The boy was admitted to the intensive care unit at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital after consuming suspected contaminated snacks bought from a spaza shop in Mapetla. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate has cleared KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of any wrongdoing The police watchdog has officially stopped its investigation into Mkwanazi after finding no evidence to support the allegations against him. And the Thulasizwe Party Youth League will this morning march from the Nelson Mandela Bridge to the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. The march forms part of the party's national hashtag Where Is My Vote campaign against the Electoral Commission's alleged vote rigging during the 2024 general elections. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's busy on the Ekurhuleni side of Gauteng this morning. A crash on the R24 at Barber Road, that is Joburg bound. That's pushing a traffic queue right back to sort of Atlas Road territory on the R21 south. So the rundown passing the airport, swinging on to R24 down to that scene is heavy. 2 crashes on the N3, one going into Galulies, one after Galulies near Linksfield. It's heavy coming up from Germiston and Alberton. And the N12 staying east but driving westbound to Joburg through Benoni into Boksburg down towards Rondebolt Road, quite slow. Pretty thick for a Friday on the N1 between Beyersnordia and Rivonia Road, and the N14 towards Pretoria has got that truck crash scene between Muldersdrift and the 512 Lansiri exit, so there's quite a bit of backlogging going on there. In fact, it's quite heavy on the N14 this morning. Pretoria, Solomon Mshluggu crash near Delphi and Rubenstein. That's slowing traffic as you leave Pretoria East area, heading down towards Garsfontein Junction, if you like. Durban's M7 from Hans Detman up over St John's Avenue Bridge into Pinetown stays busy. N2 is jam-packed this morning from the M7 through Westwood Mall. There is a breakdown on top of the normal roadworks before you get to Mgana Road this morning. Cape Town, the Old Fora Road, Khayelitsha side between Govan and Becky and Meway, crashed there earlier, causing bottlenecks both directions. The highways, the breakdown at Rappenberg on the N2 inbound is being cleared, but it's just after a bottleneck from Langa through to Hospital Bend. And the N1's quite heavy. We think a lot of that due to onlookers at Queen Anne, the massive Queen Anne cruise ship in the harbour. Delays from Plattercliff Hill all the way through to the city centre. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Let's talk M&A activity in the mining sector. Tell me about the uncertainty that you're saying has been fused into the planned sale of Anglo American's coal unit. And you're saying this is the result of Peabody reassessing its options.
That's right, Thulas. It seems like Anglo's plans to sell its steel-making coal unit hangs in the balance after a fire at its Moranbah North coal mine in Queensland, Australia. Now, the incident, which occurred last month, prompted a temporary halt in the mining operations. Moranbah is the largest of the 4 Australian steel-making coal mines that Anglo agreed to sell to Peabody in November for a deal worth about $2 billion. Now, with additional payments contingent of the reopening of the Grosvenor mine. The future of the deal is now uncertain, as you've mentioned, with Peabody announcing that it is reassessing all options related to the acquisition and safeguarding its rights under the purchase agreement. This, of course, following the incident that happened at one of the mines there. Now, Anglo remains committed to the deal, working to fulfill the remaining conditions necessary for completion. The incident has raised concerns about the potential impact on Anglo's broader restructuring plan, which aims to concentrate on copper, premium iron ore, and crop nutrients by divesting its steel-making, coal, PGMs, and diamond businesses. I spoke to FNB Wealth and Investments Chantal Marx, and she highlighted the importance of the sale as it puts Anglo on track to proceed with those restructuring plans. Marx does believe that the steel-making coal business is not a hard sell, and she thinks Anglo will progress with the sale even if it's not with Peabody.
So I thought I'd be a grown-up and not troll you about your your preference for the finer things in life. No, but that's too much work. That's too much work. This is news that's right up your alley for your LSM levels, right? Tell me about Prada and the deal to acquire Versace.
It's not right up my LSM level, né? But I'm just really intrigued by what happens in the luxury sector and really, really surprised that this deal went through considering the uncertainty that's still at play and looking at the overall luxury sector, we've only recently started seeing a recovery, and a slight one at that. And that, of course, might be reversed on the back of inflationary pressures as those tariffs come into effect. Despite that, Prada continuing to, finalize and seal a deal with Capri Holdings to acquire Versace. The deal is worth close to $1.4 billion and combines two iconic Italian fashion brands, further strengthening Italy's presence in the luxury sector, which is currently dominated by French firms like LVMH. Now, the acquisition is a long-term project for Prada, aiming to expand revenues rather than cut costs. Looking at Versace's financials, it has been operating at a loss, with revenue expected to drop to $810 million this fiscal year, down from $1 billion in 2024. So it'll really be more like a turnaround project for Prada. Now, the firm says it will fund the deal through over $1 billion in debt, with the transaction expected to close in the second half of the year. For Capri Holdings, the sale of Versace will allow the company to focus on turning around its Michael Kors fashion brand. Now, despite global market uncertainty, of course, tough competition and slowing consumption in the luxury industry, both Prada and Versace have shown confidence in the sector.
People of the right tax brackets and LSM levels. Lastly, darling, please give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
Kicking things off in Asia, really a mixed day of trade on that front. Investors assessing the impact the US-China trade war would have on global growth. And with that, the Japanese Nikkei is leading the losses on that front, losing over 4%. In Wall Street, attention shifts to earnings season, with Q1 earnings season kicking off today. We will be getting numbers from big banks, JP Morgan and Wells Fargo. But what everyone will be really looking out for is, commentary around tariffs, around their outlook, whether they are adjusting their outlooks or not. So ahead of those numbers, futures are in the green. And then coming back home, markets in positive territory, with the All Share closing 4.3% higher in yesterday's trading session. The rand, in the meantime, steady as the dollar weakens. It's sitting at 19.38 to the greenback this hour.
That's the morning brief. Sintauleng Lechela with your second update of the morning. She'll be back with the third update just after 8:30, in which she will also tell you what kind of a day you can expect in as far as trading goes in the markets.
The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half. It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies. The Klassiker, FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you are a pedestrian, when using the road this Easter holiday, make smart choices. Only cross the road at a marked intersection or pedestrian crossing. Avoid jaywalking. Wear bright clothing at night. These small habits save lives. Road safety is everyone's responsibility. Ensure that you and your loved ones arrive alive. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Transport.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's take a few of your calls and WhatsApp voice notes. Let me start with Khotso in Malutia Pofong. Good morning to you, Khotso. You want to talk to me about this proposal by the Gauteng Transport MEC of a shutdown of taxi ranks until the situation with taxi wars settles down.
Goeiemôre Thulasizwe Simelane. Hoe gaan dit Thulis?
Goed, dankie. Hoe gaan dit met u, Khotso?
Thulis, the decision that is going to take by Kidiboni, should I compliment her for that suggestion of the proposal of closing the rank between Water and Nandu? Should I compliment her?
I don't know.
According to your understanding.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, because what I can say, Nandu is working with the a mandate that was given by the ANC by the time ANC issuing a fraudulent permit to Nandue. The mandate of Nandue, it said, Nandue should kill the water taxi operator in order for Nandue to overpower water. They're going to dissolve a water. So even if the MEC, she can close the rank between water and Nandue for 6 months or 10 months. After that 10 months, Nandue is going back to their mandate that was given by the ANC. That is why Khabisi Msunkudu, he was saying that there is no need for us to shut down the rank or close down. The only way that we can solve the issue of water and Nandue is to revoke the permit. Because even now, let me tell you the secret, even now, there are the owners inside the Nandue Taxi Association. They want to move out on Nandue to gain water because they are fed up with Nandue. They want to go out with Nandue. Now they are scared because they are going to be killed. Because Nandue is sponsored by the ANC and the Metropolis and SAPS. And the Nandue is well armed.
But Khotso, okay, I hear you and I take your point. I'll be in conversation with the MEC for Transport in Gauteng, MEC Kidiboni Diale Tlabela, and that's coming up over the next few minutes or so. But where you and I, and we've had this conversation before, where you and I disagree is in making as a factual statement some of the statements that you make about the mandate of Nandue being to kill operators of water and having the mandate from the ANC and others. You and I cannot agree on that because factually, until you show me where this mandate is drawn from, you and I cannot agree on that. But I do take the points you are making and your sentiments that the conduct of those who grant the licenses in the first place is a factor in how this conflict has developed. Fair enough? We don't have to agree.
Yes, I agree with what you say.
Yeah.
Why I'm saying Nandue is working with a mandate. Do you know the guns that are used by Nandue are coming from SAPS and Metropolis? Do you know that?
No, I don't. But it's a point I will pick up with the MEC.
If you can ask Vuyomalel, he knows that some of the guns that were killed to Tumlis was a former water taxi owner there in Soweto, were killed by the SAPS guns.
Thank you. Khotso, I've heard you. That's Khotso there in Malutia Pofung. As I said, I will be in conversation with the MEC over the next few minutes about that particular issue. Let me go to Thabo in Witbank in Emalahleni. Good morning to you, Thabo. You want to talk to me about competency in schools. What about it?
Thulasizwe, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm so upset about the school called HTS in Emalahleni. 3 times my daughter has been robbed of her academic marks. At some stage, there was a award ceremony, the merit ceremony, where she was top 10. But unfortunately, at that time on stage, she was not called as a top 10 student. Then she was standing in front of, next to a white girl. Then she asked to see her marks. Her marks were the same as that white girl who was on top, in top 10. You understand? So, and then she was left behind as this other group was leaving the stage to confront the teacher about her marks or her being robbed of her rightful place. Then they said they're going to rectify that the following day. The following day she went and they rectified. She got a top 10 badge and she got 100 rand. That was due to her.
Yeah.
Would she have not attended to that, she wouldn't have bought those things. Now, last week, they were writing, last term, they were writing exams. And yesterday, I went to fetch her report.
Yeah.
She's complaining about marks again. I have to go there to the school today and address this issue because it has happened now 3 times at HTS school.
Thabo, genuine mistakes or do you believe there's a pattern?
Investigative journalists to go and attend to that school because even the person who is in charge of that circuit, she's afraid of these white schools in Witbank.
Thank you for that. That's Thabo in Emalahleni there, raising concerns about a particular school. And I wonder if anyone who is familiar with that situation, who can either add to what Thabo was saying, or someone who can clarify whether these are genuine mistakes or there's actually a pattern to be concerned about in how these matters are handled at that school that Thabo mentions. Let me go to Clifford in Baroka. Good morning to you. You want to talk to me about the conversation we had earlier on about the ANC meeting professionals in KwaZulu-Natal?
Yes, it's Baroka, not Baroka, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, about it, Tuna?
Sure. Who's it?
Oh, no, right. I'm so shocked by the professionals. I'm appealing to all professionals in South Africa to not take ANC serious. ANC has failed for past 8 years. Now, look, give them a chance again. They do the same mistake again. Now they are under 40%, but they still have gas to increase VAT for 5%. You still trust those people. So you give them the power again. You're going to bring 7% increase and non-negotiable. You understand?
Yeah.
So the ANC, as they used to say, is cold outside ANC. It's time for them to feel the coldness outside the union buildings. They must learn from the back seat now.
I hear you, Clifford. So you're saying they're beyond redemption. No point in even listening to them.
More than beyond redemption.
All right. That's Clifford in Boroka there talking about that meeting a bit earlier on that we touched on a bit earlier on between the ANC and professionals. The ANC, of course, says they'll be engaging various sectors of society as part of their rebuilding process. Let me take 2 voice notes that have to do with the call by the National Police Commissioner for police officers to be decisive in the face of criminals who confront them with violence.
Why the police force are continuing using force in the citizen? Why we create a war with the citizen and the police? Why did we not remove away the guns from the people than to create a war between the people and the police?
Yeah. No, I hear you. I take that point. But the police officers will say that's exactly what they are trying to do. But the situation has just escalated. And I think by March this year, there had been 21 police officers killed in the financial year 2024-2025. So that's part of the context of what this conversation is about.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I mean, the police must just shoot to kill to any criminals who retaliate against them, because these criminals are causing trauma in society. These criminals are terrorizing our brothers and sisters out there. Why do we have to treat them nice? But when those guys who are victims, they don't get justice in our police station, Brahma, by protect them.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for making those points. We will take a few more of your calls and voice notes a bit later on here on the show.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy delays both sides of Joburg this morning. Got this truck crash. Truck is jackknifed on the N14 between Muldersdrift and the 512 Lance Syria Malabongwe exit. Just put a video up on x.com at Traffic SA. You can have a look at the scene and you can see the enormity of the backlog there. You've got the alternative 114 that you can access from the Muldersdrift side, but a lot of people are doing that, so that's heavy as well. Other side of Joburg, multiple crashes on the N3. There's one going north at Van Buren, one going north after that at Gilulis, and one going north after that by Linksfield. So coming up from Elan's interchange out of Germiston, Alberton, very heavy all the way through Bedford, through Gilulis and up into that Edenvale area. Also the R21 onto the R24 remains heavy as you pass the airport, swinging down onto a crash scene at the R24, Joburg bound by the Barber Road exit. Still very slow in Pretoria, East Solomon, Slugger, Delphi, a crash there causing some delays towards Garsfontein, and a smash on the N1 south near Garsfontein, backlogging traffic through to the N4 Emalahleni Highway. Durban's N2 A2 under a bit of extra pressure today. There's been the roadworks at Westwood Mall, a breakdown, and now a crash scene before Mgeni Road. So coming up from Cement Factory, very heavily on that run through today. Cape Town, the N1 inbound on the elevated freeway. That'll stay busy for a little bit longer, I would think, today than your normal sort of rush hour. There's the massive Queen Anne, the cruise ship in the harbour. It's a big ship, and of course a lot of people can see that highly visible, so they all slow down, and that just Concertina's traffic backlogging onto that elevated freeway. Marine Drive quite heavy this morning. Sunset Beach down to Racecourse Road, and then a secondary queue as you line up through Milnerton down to Lagoon Beach area. Also a crash if you're driving Khayelitsha, just to watch out for some delays. It's on Old Fora Road, effectively between the Muway and Govan and Becky junctions. The delays both ways there. SAFM traffic.
Last season's finalists, Masandawana, want to reach another final, but Amakosi believe their fans deserve a special ticket to the final. This is the Nedbank Cup semi-final contest. Kiona! Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus Kaizer Chiefs on Sunday, 13 April, live streaming on SABC Plus and SABC One at 5:30 p.m. Then on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, just battling a little bit to get a hold of the MEC for Transport in Gauteng, Kidiboni Diale Tlabela. But not to worry, we wanted to talk about this situation where she's proposing a 6-month shutdown of taxi ranks across the province in an effort to bring an end to the ongoing wave of deadly taxi violence. But not to worry, you and I can carry the conversation, and we'll see if we can rearrange with the MEC and have that conversation with her a bit later on. So let me take some of your voice notes and calls as well. This one also on the issue of the ANC and its multi-sectoral engagements aimed at diagnosing what is at the heart of the disconnect that they've experienced with the decline in electoral performance.
Morning, sir. How can the ANC rebuild itself and win the hearts and minds of South Africans to vote for them again, when there's a possibility that Paul Mashatile, Vice President Paul Mashatile, might be president? That means corruption is going to continue. No, man. They must deal with these corrupt politicians. They must deal with the Zondo Commission. Then it's a possibility to see that, no, they want a clean house, that the hearts and minds of those who voted for ANC in the past will vote for them in the future. Vince, Cape Town.
Yeah, Vince, thank you for that. I do believe that those themes you are raising do come up even in those engagements that say South Africans want to see you taking issues that have been raised of corruption very seriously and dealing decisively with those issues. Let me take this one that has to do with this interesting dynamic playing itself out between the Minister of Communications, Solly Malatsi, and the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee in Parliament, Kusela Sangoni Diko. Quickly take that voice note before I go to the calls.
Hey, Thulasizwe, this is Bongiwe. The move by the DA minister when it comes to SITA is actually a move towards corruption. Watch the space. Thanks.
Yo, nice. Short and sharp. I wish you had said more how it is a move towards corruption. I suppose you're talking about the decentralization, that there'll be many, many procuring agencies, different government departments procuring digital and technological services. I don't know, I would have wanted you to say a bit more about that, but thank you for that voice note. Let me go to Diani in Campton Park. Good morning, Diani.
Morning, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well. What's on your mind this morning?
You know, it pains me to go to a hospital and find that the hospital is crowded and the help is limited. We have a hospital in Kempton Park that was shut down by the current regime, the ruling party.
I remember that hospital.
The hospital is idling there. There's no revamp on it.
Yeah.
And all the load that was supposed to be carried by the hospital, it's transferred to Tembisa Hospital. And yet it says Tembisa Hospital doesn't have necessary equipment and stuff like that. While there's a hospital that is idling, I don't understand why they cannot prioritize to fix the hospital so that they can offload some of the load from Tembisa Hospital to that Kempton Park Hospital. That is, they are paying security guards day in, day out to guard that hospital. But there's nothing happening in that hospital. I don't understand what's happening.
Are you talking about the one at Diani, that the old Kempton Park Hospital that at some point was subject of intrigue with people saying, quote unquote, it's haunted by ghosts and the likes, right?
But even if it's haunted by ghosts, imagine people are born in the hospital, people die in the hospital. We're bound to have those.
No, I'm just confirming that's the hospital you're talking about.
Yes, it's the same hospital. I don't understand why they cannot revamp that hospital to offload some of the load from these surrounding hospitals that are around Kempton Park Tembisa area.
Yeah, Tiani, thank you for raising it once again. I mean, you remind me, I did that story when I was way before I started graying all over my face and on my head. When I was a junior reporter, really young. Even at that stage, that hospital, and at that point, actually, it had some really good equipment. I remember going into that hospital, finding a theater, and I think the line that I used in my story was to say that if the need arose, a team of doctors could get in this abandoned hospital and actually carry out operations. But I believe it has deteriorated to a very significant extent from those days, and there doesn't seem to be any desire for it to be brought back to operation. Albert in Mahikeng, good morning to you. You want to weigh in on this meeting between the ANC and professionals?
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe. Those people who deal with management studies, they will tell you about a theory called the dead horse theory. That says that when you are riding a dead horse, the first thing that you need to do is to disembark. But other people would, instead of disembarking, they look at maybe the jockey is not in good condition. Maybe let's change the jockey. Maybe let's change the diet of the horse.
Yeah.
I'm drawing this reference in relation to the ANC. The ANC knows what it should do, and that is to do proper service delivery. There's no need for them to be meeting with professionals, meeting with this, because people have been telling the ANC what to do, and the ANC seems to be very deaf to what people are saying. I don't think the people in the ANC, the leadership of the ANC, can say to me or to you that they don't know what the challenges are. They can't say that they don't know why are people disconnected with their party.
Yeah.
The issue is proper service delivery.
Yeah.
End of story. There's no need for them to be meeting professionals, and what are they going to say to them? Even if those professionals are going to raise issues, I doubt if the leadership of the ANC will listen, which is another challenge of the ANC. They seem not to listen to any other person who says something different from how they look at things. So I don't see anything positive coming out of this meeting.
So in your view, it's an underrated situation. The horse is dead.
A dead horse.
He used that analogy a few years ago in reference to ESCOM. All right, Albert, thank you for that. That's Albert in Mahikeng. They're saying that the ANC doesn't really need to be doing all of this research and consultation and finding out where is the breakdown in the relationship with communities, civil society, professionals, religious organizations. There's been enough diagnosis. Just act on what you know to be the problem. Thank you for that. We will return to your calls a bit later on here on the show. But for now, and Musa at the news desk standing by with your latest news.
In our top stories, Minister Thabisa to visit Soweto child in hospital, and IPID drops probe into KZN Police Commissioner. Good morning. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velinkusini Thabisa will this morning visit an 8-year-old boy in hospital in Soweto. The boy was admitted to the intensive care unit at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital after eating suspected contaminated snacks bought from a spaza shop in Mapetla. The city of Johannesburg says the boy lost mobility after vomiting and complaining of stomach cramps. The city's spokesperson Virgil James says the empty packet of snacks have been taken to a lab for testing.
The City of Johannesburg's Environmental Health Department acted swiftly to close a spaza shop on Monday, 7 April 2025. Inspectors conducted an interview with the family and discovered that a young male of 8 years old had bought a maize snack and subsequently fell ill after consuming the snack. He was then rushed to hospital and kept at ICU.
The Independent Police Investigative Directorate IPID has cleared the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of any wrongdoing. The police watchdog has officially stopped its investigation into Mkhwanazi after finding no evidence to support the allegations against him. An anonymous complainant alleged Mkhwanazi had interfered with investigations against an official at a prison facility in the province. Meanwhile, a march in support of Mkhwanazi due to have taken place in Durban this morning has been cancelled. The Thulasizwe Party Youth League will this morning march from the Nelson Mandela Bridge to the Constitutional Court in Johannesburg. The march forms part of the party's national #WhereIsMyVote campaign against the Electoral Commission's alleged vote rigging during the 2024 general elections. The party emerged as the third largest in parliament with 58 seats out of the 400-seat National Assembly. The MK party claimed the commission failed to uphold its mandate to conduct free and fair elections. The Liquatimane local municipality, which includes the towns of Bloemhof and Christiana in the northwest, says it's trying to evacuate some residents from the banks of the Vaal River. It's referring to residents whose houses and businesses are submerged following heavy rains. 5 gates have been opened at the Bloemhof Dam as water levels continue to rise. The Mayor Sibang Mutlabi.
The only thing that we are pleading is that the residents must work together with the national department relevant that regulate dams. And if perhaps there is a concession from either the part of national government or from the part of residents that they are close to the river, and as a result of that they should not be building there, government must enter into talks with them to see what is it that can be done for them to be relocated, operate their businesses somewhere.
And finally, more details have emerged on the 6 people who died after the helicopter they were traveling in crashed into Hudson River in New York City. Reports say the deceased were 5 passengers and a pilot. New York Mayor Eric Adams says the helicopter was carrying a family of 5, including 3 children from Spain. Eyewitnesses say the helicopter broke in mid-air and crashed into the river. Jessica Tish is the city's police commissioner.
Immediate life-saving measures were undertaken on the vessels at the scene as well as the adjoining pier. 4 victims were pronounced dead on scene and 2 more were removed to local area hospitals where sadly both succumbed to their injuries. Names are being withheld at this time pending family notification.
Recapping the top story, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velinkosini Hlabisa will this morning visit an 8-year-old boy in hospital in Soweto. The boy was admitted to the intensive care unit at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital after eating suspected contaminated snacks bought from a spaza shop in Mapetla. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Heavy pressures on the east side of Joburg this morning. Ekurhuleni, there are multiple crashings, 2 on the N3, 1 before Galuli's, 1 after Galuli. So the N3 from Eland's Interchange in Germiston, very heavy right through to Edenvale. Big delays as well on the N12 and R24 routes as you come from Ekurhuleni to try and get through Galuli's and into that N3 up to the crash scene at Linksfield. There's also a crash on the R24 westbound at Barber Road. Traffic behind And that sneaks back up the R21 south as far as Atlas Road. N14 still very heavy on your way to Pretoria this morning. That's up to a crash scene before you get to the 512 Lanceria exit. Durban to Pietermaritzburg, a broken down truck between Ashburton and Market Road is just being cleared. If you're at the back of the queue there, it should be moving on shortly. Crash on Durban's N2 north before Umgeni Road. Traffic remains heavy from the M7 Bluff exit up through the roadworks of Westwood Mall and passing that crash in. In Cape Town, a lot of pressure on Kilbeson Drive this morning, moving up past N1 City towards the N1 Highway Bridge. The M3 inbound from the top of Wynberg Hill, slow all the way through to Hospital Bends. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, we're building up to the big one, and that's the semi-final showdown between Mamelodi Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs, with the Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso saying they respect Chiefs' power. And we've got golf. It was a tough opening round for South Africa's golfers at the Masters in Augusta. All this and more just before 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, 7 minutes after 8 on this Friday. It's great to be in your company. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. We are into the third hour of the Morning Brief. A full buffet of conversations that is on the table this morning. Many of you engaging with the various topics we have raised, issues around taxi violence that has really flared up in the province of Gauteng over the last few months. Anything between 30 and more than 50 people having been killed in the last few months alone. So many of you weighing in on the proposal by the Gauteng Transport MEC that there should be a shutdown. Unless this is resolved, she says there should be a shutdown of taxi ranks for 6 months, and see if that situation will not force those who earn a living through running this business of taxis to negotiate their differences and handle them differently rather than at the barrel of a gun. A lot of you are weighing in on that, as well as what was said by the National Police Commissioner that the police officers should be decisive in terms of responding to criminals who confront them with violence. Those are some of the topics that are on the table at the moment, and I see your engagement, and we will take that as well. I do want to flag that in this hour, we will focus, the signs are becoming harder and harder to ignore, that something really promising is happening in our football, right? Something of a revolution, if you want to call it that. It's no coincidence that we have 3 teams in the semi-finals of the 2 top continental competitions at the moment. Mamelodi Sundowns, of course, won that competition a few years ago. And then you're also talking about Bafana itself going for 18 games unbeaten. So we want to bring that under the spotlight and say, beyond the individual results, what is this phenomenon that is at play in as far as South African football is concerned? That conversation coming up with Kanyiso Chwaku, a senior sports reporter at Sports 24. That's coming up in the next few minutes. Your calls, 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, send them to 061 410 4107. It's the third hour of the Morning Brief. Let's get it started.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's got in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric, mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, we may be talking many things. Tariffs, the use of force by police officers, taxi violence, but the spectre of a 0.5% increase in value-added tax is never far off from our minds, and rightly so. So let me hear what this person has to say about that.
Thulas, how's it? You know, one of your voice notes said, or one of your callers said something that made me to go and think. So we're saying the VAT is increasing by 0.5%, but mathematically, it's actually increasing by 3.33%, because if you take that 0.5 divided by the 15% that we've got, that percent is actually 3.33. So now, there are many other companies that don't even increase their salary increase of their employees by that 3%. So which means we are worse off.
Yeah. No, I'm smiling because I remember this exact conversation immediately after the Minister of Finance had tabled this proposal in Parliament. I remember that. I think it was driven by Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng, who pointed out the difference between, I suppose it then boiled down to, is it percent increase or is it percentage point increase? And I don't know. I can't weigh in on that. I was never really great at mathematics. I now believe I'm at a level where I can operate with basic arithmetic, but no proficiency whatsoever. Thank you for raising that point. Let me hear what this person has to say about the use of force by police officers.
Good morning, SAFM. This is KZ10. I do think that the police should continue to use force because the criminals are using force, and this force has cost a lot of people's life. So now what do we want the police to do? To come empty-handed and while they are being shot with the guns? I don't know what our nation is looking for, but the police should use force if ever necessary to do so, to protect themselves, but also to protect our nation. Why would you go to arrest criminals with empty-handed? You have to use force because they are ready to use force. I don't understand what our citizens want.
Yeah. No, it's one of those really difficult to navigate situations where everyone agrees that there's an increasing level of violence that criminals are, carrying out their nefarious deeds with in society. But at the same time, you also want to keep check that the response by police is tailored for specific situations where the violence has actually arisen and there's a threat to life, as opposed to falling into the trap and the risk of some killings not being justifiable in law. So it's always been a tricky conversation, and this is why the police unions are saying, clarify for us once and for all of this padding that is in the law, clarify what it means, under what circumstances are we allowed to use deadly force. Dumsani in Soweto, good morning. You want to talk about border management? Dumsani, can you hear me? Please go ahead.
Can you hear me, Thulas?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thulas, I called in before with regards to this border management.
Yes.
Yesterday, the commissioner was on the media presenting body cam, which doesn't align with the POPI Act. And the authority is going to be sued by the people. And besides that, there's a lot of things happening on the ground, which I'm still waiting for you to invite the commissioner on the show.
Yes.
I thought maybe you invite him as we're celebrating a 2 years anniversary.
The National Police Commissioner or the Border Management Commission. Yes. No, it remains a project that's open on our side. We've just not been able to align dates with the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority. He is someone who's very available, but I suppose the last few weeks have been quite intense on their side, but it is something that the team is working on. In fact, I'm told that they spoke to my colleague Ashraf Garda yesterday. So that conversation happened yesterday. But you have a particular conversation that you have raised quite a number of times with us. And I do believe that we should be able to align with the Commissioner in the coming weeks and see if we can invite him to address those issues.
Yeah, to add something, I see now they're merging with SIU and NTA to nail the employees.
Yes, I saw
While
that.
on the entity itself, the management itself, on its inception, a lot of money were lost to the
Yeah. All right, Dumsani.
Yeah,
Thank you for
people must account today.
Yeah, thank you for holding us to account for the undertakings we've made to you this morning. That is Dumsani in Soweto talking about the Border Management Authority and the need to have a proper conversation with the Commissioner. Magdalene, good morning. You're calling from Mangaung. You want to talk about VET and the Government of National Unity?
Yeah, morning, Thulasizwe and the listeners. Thank you very much. Yes, Thulasizwe, I think we the voters made our voice. Because all the time it has been said from 1994 that your vote is your voice. So ANC is not a sole mandate ruling party anymore. There's no way that whatever they want to impose to us as a government, everybody in the parliament should say yes to it. Those political parties are voted for in order for them to stand for the interest of the South African citizens. It has been enough. It's too much enough that our people are put into a bad predicament of being unemployed, which is led to poverty. And now, come the 1st of May, people will be feeling, the working class will be feeling the pressure of VAT, and they will be going to the street. And after that, they will be retrenched. Another unemployment. So this is enough. This is too much with ANC. It's not that I hate ANC, but I hate what they are doing to us in order to give capability of economic growth to the foreign nationals. They are doing this for the foreign nationals. This is bad.
All right, Magdalene, thank you for that. That's Magdalene in Mangaung. I found the comment by Fikile Mbalula quite interesting, that all of these political parties we've been engaging with, they are opposed to VAT. It made me wonder, where does that leave you? Did it give you pause to think what's happening here? Why is everyone else opposed to the VAT increase? Let me speak to LM in Mpumalanga. Good morning. You want to talk to me about tariffs this morning?
Yes, morning. How are you, sir?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Fine, and morning to the listeners. Yes, I want to comment about tariff. I think, in my own opinion, is detrimental to African people. Why I say so? More special for South African disadvantage. We have got high volume of unemployment in the country. I mean, in the African continent, and yet we are most unequal society in the world. So what I was looking for is that if you look the tariffs, the language, the value chain of the belt of the value chain, it only includes mostly white companies. Sorry to say that. Mostly, because the reason being, I'll give you an example in Kigali, the market in Kigali, black, they trade amongst themselves in Kigali. But here, if you look what you export, I'll give example like BMW. They say Eastern Cape they're going to lose about $2 billion US.
Yeah.
Where does this money goes?
Yeah.
It can go to the latest poor person, but it also go amongst to the elite of South Africa.
All right, LM, let's leave it there for this morning. That's LM in Mpumalanga there on the subject of tariffs. So we'll take a few more of your calls a bit later on the show.
Can you hear that? It's the pitter-patter letting you know your roof is leaking. Terrible timing. The sound you were hoping for is the splish-splash of the beach holiday you've been saving up for. But don't let cash flow hold you back. Do both. Apply for a Nedbank personal loan and get our best interest rate with a loan of up to 400,000 Rand. Apply online at nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half. It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies. The Klassiker, FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So, has South African football over the past few years had an understated yet emphatic resurgence? There's definitely a growing sense among the sports analysts and that this is indeed the case. In the wake of three of the country's teams qualifying for the semi-finals of the top two continental competitions, Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates, both in the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League, and Stellenbosch FC reaching the semis of the CAF Confederation Cup. All of this against the backdrop of Bafana Bafana finishing third at last year's Africa Cup of Nations and now having gone 18 games unbeaten on the road to World Cup 2026. So let's unpack it all. I'm joined by Kanyiso Jwaku, who is senior sports reporter at Sports 24. Kanyiso, good morning. Thank you for your time. Is this individual performances and pockets of excellence, or is there something indeed more fundamental happening, a shift, a revolution of sorts in South African football that is happening?
Well, good morning to listeners and good morning to the good morning to the listeners. South African football has had a tendency to do well in spite of administrative issues. One does remember that the South African Football Association's house, from an administrative and somewhat financial perspective, isn't quite in order. However, though, they are able to find ways to succeed. I mean, the PSL, for example, just had to come to a decision yesterday to release Royal Aim of their league duties because of the owners of Sean Key's tax issues and how that has affected the club. But the one thing is that there's always been a talent pool, whether it's been managed well or not, has always been the case. But I think in this case, there has been a fair bit of hard work that has been put in, and it's starting to show. I mean, Sundowns has put in a lot of money into its development, so has Pirates, so has Stellenbosch FC. Stellenbosch FC are quite the Cinderella story so far. If you look at the fact that when they came up, they struggled to stay up in the league, but they're probably now the model in terms of how teams are supposed to be run in this country. So look, despite the challenges that South African football does face, it's always heartening to see that you are still punching very, very much well above our weight.
In terms of the performance of Bafana Bafana, what accounts for that? Is it, I've heard the theory being advanced that when you have the core of the team being from a team that's already doing well continentally and around the world, Sundowns, for instance, is going to play at this World Cup of Clubs. I don't know what it's called. When you have a core that comes from one team that is doing exceptionally well, parallels being drawn with Barcelona, Al Ahly in Egypt. To what extent does that theory hold weight?
You need players. First and foremost, you need players to make that happen. You can't just rock up and say you can get players from a core club. But one thing that we always have been up with what using of the players, whether coaches have been able to get the best out of those players, whether it's at club level or it's at national team level, has been a bit of the question. Hugo Broos has been able to get the best out of the same players who've been playing well for their clubs and are probably the best players around the country, and has also been keen on looking overseas and seeing what's available out there overseas. And his decision making from a selection perspective initially looked flawed at the beginning of his tenure, but 4 years in, where he picked a whole lot of players, tried to sift and search and find what is his nucleus. Now, when you look at the Hugo Broos squad, you know what his squad nucleus is. You know his match day nucleus is, and he's always using an opportunity from a friendly and a COSAFA Cup level to broaden the national team search. So They really clear plan in terms of how Hugo Bros wants to go about his search for players. And I think also what's also helped by the fact that the best group of players we've got at the moment are playing for 3 to 4 clubs or on just doing well domestically, but also punching above their weight from a continental perspective.
So you alluded to this a bit earlier on, the clubs doing well on the African continent in terms of the various competitions, but there are still many questions being asked about the league itself. Tell me about this decision around Royal AM. Do you have a better understanding of what the implications are? How will they work it out? Is it that everyone who had played Royal before this decision was taken will have points deducted, or is it a matter of this is considered to have been a league of 15 teams right from the start?
No, it wasn't considered to be a league of 15 teams. I think points will be deducted. The teams who won and drew against Royal AM will probably lose their points. The league will most probably be reduced to a 15-team league where instead of the team that is 15 will go through the promotion relegation battle with the teams that are placed second and third in the Motsepe Foundation Championship. I think what becomes interesting is what happens with the National First Division relegation battle, because remember the National First Division, the Motsepe Foundation Championship, it's 2 up, 2 down. That's probably one of the bigger issues that may need to be looked at. But from a points perspective, the points are deducted from the teams that actually won and drew against Royal AM. So effectively now the teams will be playing 28 games instead of 30 matches.
So it's, in essence, as we part ways, Kanyiso, is it your message that we have the ingredients for greatness, we just need to get our domestic league in order? Is that the essence of the message?
It's not that per se. I think there are a lot of other challenges. I mean, we somehow stumble upon players. I think our talent identification and development systems need a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, school soccer, for example, isn't at a level where schools rugby is. And I think if somehow there would be a joint effort between the Department of Education, Department of Sports, and the clubs to ensure that there's an influx of school soccer in particular, that will lead to the training of coaches, training of referees, would be far better than what we are now.
All right. Thank you for those insights. That's Kanyiso Chwaku there. He's senior sports reporter at Sports 24.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So let's continue on that theme then of football. This happens quite a lot ahead of a major encounter. Coaches exchange words of respect for one another, reverence and the likes. Genuine or just mind games?
I don't know if Cardoso's really worried about the Kaizer Chiefs bite, but you know what? I think Amakosi will be, gnashing some teeth come Sunday, and I think Miguel Cardoso is playing a little bit of mind games, but he is urging his team to stay sharp and fully motivated ahead of Sunday's Nedbank Cup semi-final against Kaizer Chiefs, all happening at Loftus Versfeld. Cardoso says his players must push themselves to the limit, warning that Chiefs are a historic and dangerous opponent. Cardoso seems to be coming to terms with the challenging situation the club faces due to the numerous fixtures.
This is the level that players and coaches and staff and clubs that want to be in the decision-making moments and on the highest level have to cope with. So also in the flight here, already we programmed a lot that has to do with the following weeks. How we're going to play when we go to Cape Town, where we're going to stay, in which day we're going to depart, where we want to sleep. So how we provide good conditions, not only for the next match, but in a few weeks in front.
Now, the Premier Soccer League's Board of Governors have decided to back the recommendation by the league's executive committee to cancel Royal AM's membership with immediate effect. Now, representatives of all 31 professional teams, minus the affected Royal AM, came together at the Sandton Convention Centre in Johannesburg to deliberate the merits of the case. The Exco, led by Chairman Ivan Khoza, has proposed that Twisli Twasla be expelled after failing to honour their domestic fixtures at the start of the year that left the league with no choice but but to suspend them indefinitely. On to swimming, Rebecca Meader broke her own South African 200-meter individual medley record at the national trials in Gqeberha, leading 3 automatic world qualifying times. Matthew Sates was back in action, and he won the men's 200-meter butterfly. Meader and Sates both booked their spots for the Global Gala to be held in Singapore from July to August, joining Peter Coetzee on the team list. And it was a tough opening round for South Africa's golfers at the Masters in Augusta, with Charles Schwartzel the best of the bunch on 2 over par 74, placing him tied for 51st. Christian Bezuidenhout is further back at 4 over, while Tristan Lawrence struggled to a 7 over par 79. At the top of the leaderboard, England's Justin Rose shot a 7 under 65, making 8 birdies to take a 3-shot lead. Defending champion Scottie Scheffler is among the chasing pack, alongside Corey Connors and Ludwig Aberg, who all carded 68s on day 1. And finally, motorsport. Carlos Sainz has risked a further fine after swearing in an official news conference while discussing a punishment he was given at the Japanese Grand Prix. The Williams driver was fined over 200,000 rand, with half of it suspended in Suzuka last weekend after turning up late for playing of the national anthem on the grid. This was despite him explaining that he had experienced stomach issues that required a trip to the bathroom. When you gotta go, you gotta go. That's a wrap. We'll have more sport with John Hediger around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musan. The headlines: the Media Review Network is calling for a thorough investigation into the Democratic Alliance and Patriotic Alliance following the party's contentious visit to Israel recently. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velinkosini Hlabisa will this morning visit an 8-year-old boy in hospital in Soweto. The boy was admitted to the intensive care unit at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital after eating suspected contaminated snacks bought from a spaza shop in Mapetla. And uncertainty is continuing over U.S. President Donald Trump's drastic tariff policies. Shares in Japan have opened down. The Nikkei index fell sharply in early trading. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling. So Ndauling, this is not news we want to hear. Tell me about manufacturing production and what it's been doing over the month of February.
So the local manufacturing industry still on a losing streak, Thulas, with output continuing to decline. In February, production fell 3.2% on an annual basis, surpassing the 2.9% decline predicted by Reuters, but aligning with Bloomberg's 3.1% forecast. Now, the drop was largely driven by a near 15% decline in motor vehicles, parts and accessories, which cut 1.3% from total output, and a 5.6% decline in petroleum, chemical products, rubber and plastic products, subtracting 1.2% from total output. Now, economists attribute the decline to factors like insufficient demand and increased competition from cheaper Chinese models. Now, the manufacturing sector's underperformance has significant economic implications given its contribution to GDP and employment. The sector has posted losses in both January and February, suggesting that it'll probably contribute negatively to the overall GDP for Q1. Now, the sector has struggled to return to pre-pandemic levels, with production down 6% since 2020. While some economists are hopeful for recovery, others are cautious. The ABSA PMI that we got about a week ago also suggests a slight improvement in March, but still within contractionary territory.
In the financial sector, Ndauling, tell me about First Rand eyeing growth in the corporate banking market.
And this is according to a Business Day article to us, the financial services group looking to expand its corporate banking presence within the country by integrating its RMB and FNB brands. Now, to lead this initiative, the company recruited Munir Ismail, an executive with experience as CEO of HSBC SA and Deutsche Bank. Now, the strategic move is part of a larger plan to boost RMB's corporate banking capabilities, which includes a proposed acquisition of HSBC's South African business. The acquisition is subject to regulatory approval. Now, if given the thumbs up, the move will strengthen RMB's position in that market, where it currently trails behind competitors like Standard Bank. According to First Rand CEO Mary Vilagazi, the company has established franchises in retail, commercial, and investment banking, but sees more opportunity and growth in the large corporate sector. Vilagazi also noted that international banks are downsizing across Africa and says First Rand is well positioned to support its clients through this period of uncertainty and also just take advantage of the downsizing by international banks. The company further said it is closely monitoring the impact of U.S. trade policies on its clients in the agriculture, automotive and chemicals sectors and will provide necessary support during this challenging time.
All right, Ntauleng, cast your eye ahead for us, please, and share with us your insights into how the markets are likely to end the week.
It's so difficult to tell, Thulas. I'm even looking at my crystal ball and I'm getting nothing.
You're saying
I'm not
nothing.
getting anything.
Crystal ball. Yeah, you're shaking it. Shake your crystal ball and turn it upside down.
I put it down. I held it up, but tough times. So looking at what international markets are doing, we are likely to see the JSE start mixed this morning. We will probably still see a rally in the resources complex, though, as gold remains strong. So a mixed performance from the JSE this morning. In terms of company news, there's an update from Gemfields, and Vukile Property Fund has boosted its portfolio, acquiring another property in Portugal. So markets also waking up to that this morning. In currency markets, the rand steady after regaining some ground. It's at 19.39 to the dollar this hour. Then over in the US, banking earnings are in focus. Numbers out from JP Morgan and Wells Fargo later today. Ahead of those reports, futures are in positive territory. Then lastly, in Asia, stocks on track for a mixed close as investors remain wary about the tensions between the world's largest economies, the US and China.
You see what happens when you take your crystal ball and you smack it a little bit and shake it. Those insights come out. That's Ntauleng Lechela. She's kept you updated on business, the markets, and the economy over the last 3 hours.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Still very heavy eastern side of Joburg. A couple of crash scenes on the N3 North this morning. One before and one after Galuli's. Just left a backlog of traffic from Elan's interchange all the way through to Edenvale. N12 and R24 routes are really significantly backed up driving in from Ekurhuleni, trying to get into that N3 North queue at Galuli's. Truck crash between Muldersdrift and Lanseria is still there. The Krugersdorp highway is heavily backed up if you're running from Krugersdorp direction Pretoria. Just got a broken down vehicle after Linfield Park on your way to Durban. If you're coming out of Pietermaritzburg, watch for some delays building through there. The N2 North stays heavy from the M7 highway up through Spaghetti Junction into the roadworks and a crash before you get to Umgeda Road this morning. That's why the N2 at this hour is still so heavily backed up. Cape Town, a crash on the Coburg Road at Section Street, slowing traffic through Brooklyn towards the N1 highway. And Stellenbosch Arterial stays slow this morning if you're running from Delft through to Belhar. Stellenbosch Arterial into that Symphony Way junction in Delft, backed up and slow go. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
TS Galaxy Queens have a special game plan to display a stellar performance to collect maximum points in their own backyard. However, Royal AM want to demonstrate their royalty with a win away from home. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Don't miss out on TS Galaxy Queens versus Royal AM Ladies the Saturday 12 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's take some of your calls this morning. Mpo in Randfontein, good morning. You want to respond to the conversation we had a bit earlier on about the state of football in this country?
Yes, my brother, and good morning to you and the listeners of SAFM. The point is that firstly, the analysts overlook the women's soccer.
Yes.
They've done very well in many years.
Yes, it's perhaps partly my fault as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know that they're number one in Africa. They've played the World Cup and they performed, even though they lost at the quarterfinal or group stages. But they did very well. Sundowns girls has also done very well. So generally, your first point was that the soccer rising in South Africa truly does.
Yeah.
I think the investment of SAFA and the PSL in local league is paying dividends in big ways. But you know, one thing that I saw yesterday, I don't know that you follow under 17,
no.
the underage. Yes, those boys are extremely.
They're also coming up.
Morocco. Let me tell you, the future is bright.
Oh, wow.
If they can keep those boys the way they are, the under 17, I think they outplayed Egypt last week. They outplayed Burkina Faso. They were playing Morocco yesterday. It's extremely good. Unfortunately, they lost because they were very careless at the back. But generally, so our future is very good. We just want to keep the structures as they are. People must continue to invest on our teams.
Yeah.
We have a good future for soccer in the country.
No, thank you for that, Mpo, and thank you for pointing out that omission of women's football. I'm ashamed that I left it out because it is not a by-the-way conversation. It is very central to the development of football in our country. That's Mpo in Randfontein. Sandile, good morning. You want to talk to me about bribery in this country?
Oh, yes. Sawubona
baba, kunjani?
Ngiyaphila Makutwa. Makutwa, my heart is bleeding. And this thing has been carrying on for now some time, and we seem not to be doing anything. You know, at Mkondeni, there is a testing station there. To qualify to get a driver's license, you need to have paid some bribery because you cannot actually pass the test if you have not actually paid a bribery. And I do not hear anything from the department or the MEC himself to say that there are some measures that they've actually put in place so that they can actually curb what is happening there. Because remember that there are people who are going there to get the driver's license who are paid by their grandmothers and grandfathers. The last cent. And I don't know, Makutwa, if you can actually invite us, these MECs, to tell us what measures have they actually taken, because I'm sure they know about these things. And some of the officials, you know, if they are not actually deployed to do the testing, they are actually deployed to be in the office. They are fighting with the public. You know, so I don't know, why are we not talking about these sensitive issues? Because we need, as a nation, to be talking about these sensitive issues.
Absolutely.
And deal with them.
No, thank you for that, Sandile. And of course, we were scheduled to speak to the MEC here in Gauteng at least, but we could not get a hold of the MEC for that, which was a separate conversation about taxi violence. But I take the point that you are making. It would seem, Sandile, if I may add to what you are saying, it's so deep-seated, this issue of bribery at testing stations, such that it feels to me like it's what do they call that famous government speak, low-hanging fruit, that all it will take is just one minister saying that I've seen this, I've seen enough, here's my big intervention. You may fail in other areas of policy, but I suspect if you succeeded in this one, because it feeds into the conversations we have about driver safety and road fatalities, if you succeeded in this one and maybe one or two other areas of policy, you would have done well as a minister or an MEC. You're absolutely right. It does need to remain central to our conversations. Linda in Boksburg, good morning. You want to talk about the crime-fighting strategy?
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
All right. I'll comment on two things. Firstly, it's almost like a cynical observation that I have. In that General Mkhwanazi is one of the policemen I describe him as a true policeman.
Yeah.
Who is really, really fiercely fighting crime,
Yep.
going all out to ensure that crime is really dealt with. However, interestingly, all political parties, none of them are saying anything about General Mkhwanazi in support of his work, including the fact that he is being attacked. You know, the Malanich is being attacked. It reminds me of you remember the Cato Manor controversy?
Yes.
Yes, there was a general who was hounded out of the police on suspicion that is running a so-called hit squad. He was even taken to court.
Yes, I remember that.
You see, and this is exactly what they are doing to General Mkhwanazi, including the fact that the media is colluding in this nonsense. Because the manner in which the media is reporting on General Mkhwanazi, and News 24 is one of them, it's clear that there's an agenda to get rid of General Mkhwanazi.
Sure.
And the political parties are saying nothing, simply because I suspect, and this is suspicion, they're also benefiting from the process of time. Criminals are powerful in this country. They have so much money that they are funding every project to subvert anything to fight crime.
So, Linda, let me add to what you are saying. I from what I've observed with the withdrawal of the investigation by IPID, to be honest with you, where I'm seated, IPID owes us a fuller explanation. It's not enough to say we've withdrawn this investigation, just for several reasons. One, the initial confusion about who the complainant was, initially saying it was the Minister of Police, who then said, I had nothing to do with this, and then they had to retract that statement. It's not a minor glitch, that. It's a big deal. Where did the complaint come from? And now it being suddenly dropped just a few weeks after it was announced. We do, deserve fuller accountability. And this is not to say that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi should be untouchable if there's any wrongdoing on his part.
Deja vu, exactly the point. This has been the strategy all the time. When someone who's coming out to really clean up the system, that person immediately gets targeted so that he can be removed. The last
Linda,
point, that's the last point.
Very quickly,
The minister yesterday was a disappointment. He rehashed everything we've heard about crime-fighting strategies. If that was the summit, wasteful expenditure in terms of government.
All right,
Thank
Linda,
you.
let's leave it there. That's Linda in Boksburg. Let me take a call from Solomon in KwaZulu-Natal. Good morning to you, Solomon. Yeah, you believe that we are an angry nation. Tell me why you believe that.
Yes, Thulasizwe, good morning. It is my observation that South Africans are a nation too angry and intolerant with itself.
Sure.
And this lends credence to the service done at an international level, that we are the least certified, least tolerant, and that is evident in every sector of our life. There is anger everywhere. The accidents on the road, crime, GBV, in parliament, the comments that we have, we are the least certified, and in the process we miss an opportunity. There is a strength and there are good opportunities that we can cooperate. And that is why other minorities are controlling the economy, because the majority of us, we are not only identifying what is wrong and correct it, but we add too much emotions to everything that we do. I have noticed that in your earlier calls this morning, everybody is angry, and in that environment, there is no chance that you can be able to correct and
talk solutions.
Yes, we are in the driving seat as a nation, regardless of political parties.
Right.
As black majority, we need to sit back and say, why are other nations, minority for that matter, taking advantage of us? Majority is a strength.
Solomon, thank you. Thank you for steering that conversation in that direction, just allowing us to pause and reflect the balance between identifying problems and being angry about them, a lot of the times justifiably angry, but also then coming up and workshopping solutions together. Hopefully we can use platforms such as this one to actually do that more and more. Let me take a call from Matebe in Middleburg. Good morning to you. You want to talk about racism as well as the issue around Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. Quick and sharp for me, please.
Yes, thank you, Awutula. Yes, I'd like to disagree with your previous caller saying none of the political parties are condemning what they are doing against the General Mkhwana. EFF issued a statement condemning that. Your previous caller must not come to the radio and lie, saying none of the political parties has condemned.
Yeah.
And IPAD had no case against General Mkhwana. They must not say they are withdrawing. At first, they never had any case because of the procedure of arrest when it comes to drugs. You can't just determine that there's drugs without going to testing lab. That is drugs. Yes, they had no case at all. Then racism, I would to learn. The apartheid system has ended. The racism never ended. So these people of when you can check, majority of Afrikaners, not all of them, majority of them, they are still having that belief that a black person is nothing. Yes, when you can check in the surrounding farms, go and check as those people are staying in surroundings of the farm. How are they subjected by these racist Afrikaners? Because your heart will be painful when you hear that even these farmers are cutting the water supply to these people. They must go and fetch the water from the river bends. In 2025, people are fetching water in the river.
Is it your sense that it's the majority, or is it many Afrikaners? I just want to be clear about that.
As I'm saying, not all of these Afrikaners, but majority of them that are still having this belief. Even you saw even a post of Pick and Pay where they put that a flag of Israel.
Pick and Pay.
Yes, there's a post there in Facebook. Yes, they put saying that they are in support of what is happening there about the Palestine and Israel.
The company Pick and Pay.
Yes.
I did not see that post. We'll have to verify that, Mateli.
Yes.
Yeah, but thank you for raising the points that you've raised this morning.
Thank you very much.
As it relates to what you said about that post, I do believe that we need to verify what the actual facts of that are. All right, I'll make time to take a few more of your voice notes just before we wrap up the show.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's been a pretty heavy Friday, and it continues that way. If you're driving up through Midrand, a crash on the M1 North at New Road. Traffic delays from Allendale. Still with queues on the N3 as well, moving through Bedfordview, Galoonies up into a crash at Linksfield Road. So the N3 is heavy, and that means big delays on the N12 and R24 routes as you come in from Ekurhuleni. Those highways jamming up through Galoonies to get in. You're basically turning into the N3, right into the crash and right into the heavy stuff. Also, collision on the Mike 1 South near Jan Smuts Avenue, St Andrews Road. So coming from Melrose, Santon on your way down to Joburg, that stays heavy, and the jackknife truck problem on the N14 approaching the Malabongwe Lansiri exit, still very much an issue as well. Durban this morning, earlier crash on the N2 North after Spaghetti Junction towards Mgeta Road. That has been cleared. Traffic remains busy because, of course, you're driving up into the work zone as well. Stationary truck at Ashburton, that's causing a delay for motorists heading through to Pietermaritzburg. And Cape Town, still plenty of traffic on the N1. It probably will be busy for some time this morning. A lot of traffic going in over the elevated freeway. Having a look at the mighty Queen Anne. It's a massive cruise ship in the harbour. It's its first visit to Cape Town. It's causing a lot of interest. So N1 coming through from Century City, staying fairly busy. Also, that Stellenbosch arterial road, if you're on the run through Delft, it just remains busy and clogged as it has been all morning into the Symphony Way junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored! His first Premier League goal! Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Wielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's gone in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's go to the story now. Gauteng Tourism, in partnership with Cape Town and leading marketing collaborators, they are set to take center stage at the World Travel Market, WTM Africa, from the 9th to the 11th of April. And this will be happening at the Cape Town International Convention Center. It is one of Africa's premier B2B travel trade events. WTM Africa presents a powerful platform, we are told, for the Golden Province to shine the spotlight on its dynamic tourism offerings. Let's speak to Baba Khanediwe, who is Chief Destination Marketing at Gauteng Tourism. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. So obviously a massive event, the number of people and exhibitors who will be there and present. But what benefit will it bring to the tourism market and tourism economy in Gauteng?
Thank you very much, Thulas. It's a massive event. It's also an opportunity for Gauteng to be everywhere where it matters. Every platforms where decision makers are there, where buyers are there for travel. It's an opportunity for us to engender, especially our new itineraries. Coming from the backdrop of the devastation of COVID, some of our previous products and attractions had to close down. Others had to repackage themselves. You remember, for example, the iconic SAB World of Beer in Newtown had to close down. It's now a funeral parlor. Therefore, we had to make sure that we update our itineraries. We ensure that those that are buying and packaging travel for global sales now understand that the dynamics of tourism products have changed. We have new products like the Nelson Mandela Legacy Series, which last year in November were declared World Heritage Sites. We also have in our arsenal our sporting GP and musical GP offering. You'll remember last month we launched the new dome outside FNB Stadium. So these are important assets that assist us to shape what goes into sales platforms and tourism marketing booklets around the world, that Gauteng is no longer a transit destination. Our bed nights, our holiday trips, and our tourism revenue are in pole position.
Say a bit more for me, Baba, about what you're calling it sporting Gauteng. What conscious efforts are you making to highlight the sporting tourism opportunities, be it in the form of football, rugby, marathons, and the likes? I see, for instance, Cape Town bidding to have the Cape Town Marathon being Africa's first world major. What's comparable that Gauteng is doing?
100%. Sports continues to be a glue that binds our nation, an important element of social cohesion and nation building. For Gauteng point of view, we are literally Africa's mecca of sports entertainment. One of the only 9 stadiums in the world to host the FIFA World Cup finals is found in our destination. We have also managed to relocate the SA Sports Hall of Fame from Sun City to FNB Stadium. Therefore, we are deliberately building a sports tourism route. And part of the excitement about this new route is that we are collaborating with professional athletes, legends that came from some of these dusty spaces to be the narrators and tellers of the story of our sporting prowess. We can imagine somebody says, I started playing for Kaizer Chiefs in the dusty streets of Krefeni. Yeah. I then moved to Ellis Park Stadium. I'm now at Naturena.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for us to engender transformation, get new players
into the sector that will then be able to transform the sector. That's what we are doing, whether it's around the GPL Wanderers Cricket Stadium, one of the best in the world, or to our township tourism offerings. Some of our townships have some of the best stadiums, from Makulu stadiums to Lucas Moripe in Atteridgeville. So we are integrating all the sports activities to form a solid tourism offering that we can upsell for the growth of our province.
Very quickly, Baba, what are you saying to the authorities that run local government and provincial government about the degree to which some of the deterioration of infrastructure and service delivery in cities like Johannesburg can have the effect of undermining your message, a message that should be beneficial to everyone in that it boosts the provincial economy, but one can argue that it is being undercut by some of the realities of deterioration?
It's not just undermining our message, it's undermining our deliberate efforts. Therefore, we need to pull together. We need to pull all the stops to make sure that our streets are clean, our lights are working, our spaces are habitable for work, play, and stay. And that is why we have coordinated a forum with all local authorities to ensure that tourism is not a side effect. Livable and workable spaces continue to draw confidence for investors, thus improving our spaces. An event like Soweto Marathon that runs through the World Heritage Site streets in Orlando West becomes a global advert for the destination, an important catalyst for trade and investment. That's our message, to say we need to pull together. But we are excited and buoyant by the reception we have received here at World Travel Market Cape Town. Buyers are excited and interested in our new routes.
Thank you for that. That's Baba Khanediwe, who is Chief Destination Marketing at Gauteng Tourism. I just had the image of those red sightseeing buses navigating those craters that we have for potholes in Gauteng. Not a pretty image at all. But anyway, we are out of time. Let's leave it here for this morning. Thank you for listening and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM after the news with Ann Musa.